Light news. Tornado watch. ICE tortures another green card holder. It's like stuck in my head. Where was I? Voice of America is closed. No, not Bloody Sunday, Bloody Saturday for Voice of America. No, I can't believe it. I'm so upset about that. RIP. Anyway, Saturday, Funday, Cop Watch, Hog Watch, Unreacts, Gaming. We got it all. Isn't the reason you want Asmongold on stream with you just so you can get him banned again? You think I got him banned last time and not what he said on his stream? What? No. Do you think that I run Twitch? Like, do you think that I have like genuine power over Twitch? I mean, I just got banned recently. Was that like a fake ban? I really want to understand where you're coming from with this. I do genuinely want to know, because like it's got to be some cool ass opinions. It's got to be some cool ass opinions up there. Yeah, we're gonna watch the Chinese support for Palestine as well. That's like a really cool 9-minute video. Please, Mimic Queen, give me something good here, because I really do want to hear what your perspective is on this. Do I control the media? Is it me? Is that what you're thinking? Anyway, do we have a blast off meme chat? No. And also, the reason why I want to talk to Asmongold is pretty clear, like pretty open. I'm pretty open about it. I don't care about Asmongold doing like transmog competitions or even like reacting to political stuff in general with his own seasoning. That's great, right? I do, however, care about, like, you know, Asmongold doing right-wing propaganda, either deliberately or because he just doesn't have all the facts. And in that process, I've never not been charitable to Asmongold. I would still absolutely be charitable to Asmongold in a conversation, like in a direct conversation, you know what I mean? And I think that watching clips of one another is not going to give people the full scope of people's arguments. But what I don't understand is a lot of these people used to always say, oh, Hassan, you're like afraid of debates. You're too afraid of debates. I don't understand why you're so afraid of debates. And it's like, now they still say I'm afraid of debates while I'm trying to talk to Asmongold. So they have to like, like I saw something under Chris Cappy's post, because Chris Cappy was like talking about the new state of affairs of media on Twitter yesterday. Chris Cappy is a content creator on YouTube. You might have seen his stuff where he was like, back in the day, it used to be Tucker Carlson versus, you know, Bill O'Reilly, right? He says something like, back in the day, it used to be Tucker Carlson versus Bill O'Reilly. Here's the tweet. My generation had Jon Stewart versus Bill O'Reilly debates. This new generation has Asmongold versus Hassan proxy debates, commenting on each other's streams, the information age Cold War. And I said, I said I'd do it in person, to be fair. And there is like, this is the funniest fucking response to that. This is what I saw in response to that. The Hassan system, the proven method for handling criticism: hide, ignores critics' content to obscure their argument, alter, drastically misrepresent their opposing view, strawman. Also, I look pretty hot in this, so thank you. Once again, my haters like making me look hot. Strawman, attack the misrepresentation by grouping critics with deplorables. Avoid, debate only weaker opponents, not the original person. Name call, label frustrated opposition is crazy or obsessed to discredit them. Now, what's really interesting about this is I think it's projection, but also it kind of fails because, like, there are a lot of right-wingers that I openly will say I want to debate, right? Like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Charlie Kirk. And what is really funny about it is that this basically demonstrates how stupid you are. You have to be as a Marine Corps veteran, because this is me literally saying I would talk to Asmongold in person. And you're just like, nah, dude, I bet you're running away from him. Like, it makes no sense. But hey, thank you for keeping a sexy photo of me in your phone. That's nice. Blast off, Gavin Newsom, and this is Daryl Cooper. That's funny. That's meta. God damn, that Daryl Cooper stuff kind of it was a little shocking, I will say. There is a real growing movement on the right of people who just like don't necessarily care like one way or another about Israel. Some of them really hate Israel. Some of them don't care. Some of them are like agnostic, but they hate Jews. Like, holy moly. Like, really. And it's always been there, but like now it's pretty out and about, like pretty much out in the open. Interesting stuff. Go look at the comments on the video, the Daryl Cooper video. I don't want to look at it anymore. The same executive order that shut down Voice of America also shut down the Wilson Center, I think that Russia designated as an undesirable organization in 2022. Huh. I don't understand why they're doing the Voice of America thing. But anyway, let's get started on this. Twitch CEO explains how they deal with high-profile bans after Hassan's suspension. Twitch CEO has admitted it's tricky at times when it comes to banning streamers and has also lifted the lid as to whether he has the power to suspend channels. Twitch bans have been a hot topic within the live streaming community. Streamers have called on Amazon-owned platform, blah, 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 blah. Speaking to Business Insider's Peter Kafka for his channel's podcast, Clancy revealed that some bans are tricky to do. On a VOD platform like YouTube, you can edit something or take something down. It's hard to sit there and talk for 6 hours straight and not step over the line, he said. It's 6 to 8 hours trying to make sure you don't step over the line. So it's the fact that sometimes people step over the line and you can't just edit it as you would on a VOD platform. I don't think it's contentious. It's just tricky for both them and us to make sure. Look, we keep it within the guidelines. So we have to see when somebody steps over the line and do something to make sure they don't step over the line consistently. That's a pretty good approach to it, I think. Obviously, people will not take this seriously because they've already made up their minds on Dan Clancy specifically and also Twitch specifically. I will say, like, regardless of my criticisms of Twitch or my immediate criticisms of Dan Clancy, I think that, like, for example, I don't like that he streams so much. Okay? That's one thing that that's my own personal opinion. You might not agree with it, right? I'm not like the biggest fan of that because I feel like you're opening yourself up to a lot of attacks in general, right? And yet him doing streams, unironically, I think allows him to get a better understanding of the product and the content creators themselves and like what they go through. Does that make sense? Like there are some issues as far as like the app, you know, the Twitch app is like kind of garbanzo and they're trying to fix it. But as a CEO, I think like Ford CEO also drives a Ford. No, it's Ford CEO literally does not drive a Ford exclusively any longer. He's now driving a fucking Yangwang, I think. But yeah, as a CEO, it's still good to understand like the service that the platform is providing. For fucking real, hilarious example to be wrong about. What? Anyway, the Twitch boss also noted that he personally does not decide on anyone's ban, be it hand one out or lift an existing suspension. We have a team that does that. It's not automated. I'll be aware of their decision for certain high-profile streamers, but it's not my decision because the whole point is to keep some degree of separation. That came off the back of being asked about Hasanabi's recent 24-hour ban. It also was revealed by Twitch streamer Amaranth that Clancy did, however, get a shadow ban on her channel lifted. So they asked him about me getting hit with the 24-hour one. Yeah. At 6:58, the reporter says you were clearly not doing
support for this show comes from Smartsheet. Have you ever?
Yeah. Wow. We got guys. We clearly have shooters out there in the journalism. I do control the media. Okay.
You're watching on the biggest channels because those are the ones you've heard of, right? And on a big channel, it is the fact that chat flies by. The magic of Twitch is on the channels of like, there'll be somewhere between 200 and 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 people watching, 4,000. And chat doesn't fly by as fast then. Then you can really see chat, you recognize names. And the other thing is
you're closer to being on a message board.
It's yes. And also you're dropping in once, okay? Part of it is you come again and again. And the analogy I often use, now I'm playing to my own generation, is back to the TV show Cheers, where everyone knows your name, and you show up in a chat room that you go regularly, and everybody screams out your name if you haven't been there for a while and says, "Norm, where you been?"
Yep.
Right? And you feel like you belong, and that they're happy to see you.
Always glad you came.
One of your biggest streamers, Hassan Piker, someone I'm familiar with. I've interviewed him. He's got a caustic edge to him.
Yep.
He was recently suspended on Twitch.
That's cool.
He was making.
That's a cool way to. Damn. He said, I got a caustic edge to me. I like that. Damn. Journalism is not dead, folks. Wow. This guy. Let's see what he says.
The point about healthcare. He was sort of extending a metaphor that involved killing Rick Scott, the U.S. senator. He wasn't calling on people to kill Rick Scott, but he's making a metaphor. He was suspended. Apparently, he's been suspended multiple times. First of all, how does that work? How do you get suspended at Twitch? Do you get?
Damn, I can't believe an adult in the media who. I cannot believe that an adult journalist in the media who has spent a good deal of time studying communication, using language, covering the news, did not have the same exact attitude as like a Libs of TikTok or a fucking Asmongold on this issue. But of course, those are the guys who are gay and woke and wrong, and the based patriots are the dudes who don't leave their homes with YouTube channels. And it's not just Asmongold. I'm talking about like the way that a lot of Americans approach this issue nowadays, and their media consumption is like, no, every single person that's a fucking nerd is wrong. And you know, they're just like, they have a secret political perspective and they're woke, and that's why they're sheltering this person. Interesting. All right. Hasanabi, renounce your citizenship. No, if U.S. is so bad. I'm good, man. Thank you, though. Thank you for the suggestion. Yeah, I'm just shocked that this journalist would actually report on what truly happened instead of immediately being like, well, this terrorist guy, this freaking terrorist Hassan, okay? I call him Hasanabi. Some people call him Hasanabi. I call him Hasanabi. Why the fuck's he still on the platform? Or let alone in the United States of America? As a journalist for Business Insider, I say, get him out of here. As a matter of fact, get them all out of here. Are you actually surprised, though? You apologized and admitted the words were hyperbolic? No, I was never surprised for being banned. I'm just showing you that, like, people do understand the difference. Like, they're, especially adults. There are still adults out there. Because I think the more we look at just, like, right-wing commentary online and how much that has devolved throughout time, we get a false notion. That, or a false sense of reality that like everyone is incredibly stupid, right? And I don't think that's the case. I think that there are still intelligent people out there, and you can't like lose sight of that. You can't forget that there are normal humans out there who also look to like Elon Musk hiling and don't immediately rush to defend him. There are plenty of normal people who see that and go, oh, that's it. I'm done. I'm writing this guy off. There are normal people out there who are still intelligent, careful, considerate, maybe not like super knowledgeable on an issue, but don't immediately just like fly off in the most reactionary perspectives. That's what it is, right? We need to remember that. We need to remember that there are people like this in the media. There are people like this all around us. And I think I sometimes lose sight of that because I've read too much Asmongold comments. You know what I mean? Like Asmongold YouTube comment section. And I think when you stare into that darkness for an extended period of time, you end up developing a false interpretation of like what our fellow citizens are like. Not to say that there aren't truly people like that, and those numbers are growing, especially online, where there's just like an incredible amount. There's a definite like crisis of intellect, a crisis of critical thinking, a crisis of nuance in this country, for sure. But I do think that, you know, it's not as severe as we think it is. Living in a hate pit versus a hug box. Yeah. Are you going to talk about the U.S. Yemen military op from today, or did you already cover it? Dude, can you calm down? I will. Yes, it's right here. U.S. launches broad attack on militant sites in Yemen. I know. Trump is doing the same thing that, you know, Biden did, which is just like, let's just bomb Yemen again. You know, just one big hurrah. It'll work this time. Yeah, Mr. Peaceful Dove, dude. Mr. Mr. I'm going to handle this whole Israel stuff in a day. Mr. I'm going to handle Russia in a day. We'll get to that. Okay, this is seemingly...
Get involved when it's a high-profile person? Is this automated? How does that work? And how do you get reinstated?
Yeah, so first of all, they're indefinite. I'm not indefinite. They're for a given period of time. They're not indefinite.
It's sort of a timeout.
It's a timeout. It's a timeout, so think of it like that, right? And all it is try to make sure people stay within the guardrails, right? And so the idea, of course, is, look, if someone goes outside the guardrails a little, give them a little bit of timeout. So then it's like, okay, I'm going to work hard to stay within, the community guidelines. And we have a team that does that. It's not automated. I'll be aware of their decisions for certain high profiles, but it's not my decision, because the whole point is to keep some degree of separation, right? Where they're trying to make what is a consistent decision on the platform.
And it seems like it's an ongoing theme for many of your big name folks, that they constantly are sort of, not constantly, but often are pushing the limits, getting in trouble, getting booted, getting reinstated. And then there also seems to be sometimes a question of, did the streamer say something? Was it one of his fans saying something? Was it someone off camera saying something? How do you?
Yeah, I think it's like Twitch still as a medium is somewhat new, right? And a lot of normies don't entertain the idea of like tuning in to a broadcast for like 6 to 8 hours a day. So they have no way of comprehending how you can easily manipulate language and take advantage of the nuances of any kind of statement, let alone political statements. That's pretty much it. It's just like, it's very difficult to fully understand what a person's perspective is when they're talking about political issues for 8 hours, 10 hours a day, and then you're just reading what they have to say through 12-second clips. It's just not. You're never going to understand a person's perspective that way. It's virtually impossible. And because people don't really know what this medium looks like in general, I think a lot of people get duped. I get duped, and I'm in this field. You know what I mean? I'm in the heart of this, and I still get duped sometimes. Like, I'll give you a high-profile example of this. There's that guy, the Black Captain America or whatever. Like, there's a tweet out there with like 100,000 likes, and I didn't even see what he actually said. Was it Anthony Mackie? Hold on. I think why your rage responded. Oh, here it is. Like, this is what I want to show you in terms of context, in terms of like how we operate, right? Anthony Mackie has a 1 minute and 45-second response here where he talks about, I guess, like masculinity. And this person said, it feels so real to finally be being given a reason to hate him. Pivot podcast. For the past 20 years, we've been living through the death of the American male. They've killed masculinity in our communities. At Anthony Mackie, right? Star actor Anthony Mackie has soared to the highest levels of Hollywood, but one thing he really doesn't play about is raising his boys to be young men. He talks to, okay, when I saw official Crowder, I was like, Steven Crowder, what the hell? He talks to these people about how he keeps them humble. He brings them up with respect and responsibility, but strays from society's trend of what they are trying to make young men think and feel. Right? So let's hear what he had to say and whether he worded this or weirdly or not. And we'll see if he was clipped out of context.
I keep my boys humble. Like, my boys have never had a pair of Jordans. You know, my boys don't do all that internet fly shit. I'm like, your kids.
None of this is controversial so far. He's literally just saying that he doesn't like the flashy, he doesn't like the flex culture that he sees, especially for younger generations online. I agree with that 100%. Let's see.
And no, I don't give a, I could be the biggest star in the world. Do not let me catch you being stupid. Mm-hmm. Do not. And my oldest gets it. My 15-year-old, he tells the other ones, he's like, yo, don't make dad mad. Because once you get one that's right, he gonna straighten the other ones out. Mm-hmm. So it's just that thing of, in the past 20 years.
This is such a funny, this is like the most old head podcast, by the way. It's like, I don't know anything about this podcast, but it's like, as soon as it panned over to the host, I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
we've been living through the death of the American male. They have literally killed masculinity in our homes and our communities, for one reason or another. But I raised my boys to be young men. And however you feel about that, you feel about that. Right. But my boys will always be respectful. They will always say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. No, sir, no, ma'am. They will always say thank you. They will always open the door for a lady. They will always make sure that their mother is taken care and provided for. They will always be men. And that's always, since they were 2 years old. Every time I left for a job, I tell my 15-year-old, you're the man of the house. You make sure these doors are locked every night, this alarm is on, you text me or you call me every night before you go to bed and you wake up.
I love that.
Because we're men. If I'm not there to protect, he got to be there to protect. Because you can have all the money in the world, climb through the window, that money means nothing. Right. You can have all the celebrity in the world, jump through the door, that celebrity means nothing. Yeah. So you got to have a little guard in there, you know? And so for me, it's always that idea of American masculinity is very different.
Okay, so it comes across as like kind of right-wing, right? And apparently the context of this, like it's not that controversial, like what he's saying, but immediately, like if you are tuned in to that frequency, if you know what like right-wing commentary and right-wing statements look like, yeah, it's understandable that people will go, oh, he's talking about like male bravado, like the pussification of like American men, like because when you make a statement, there are a lot of things that you're not saying that you're operating off of, like underlying premises that you're operating off of, and that leaves a lot of room for interpretation for people. And if people are conditioned into recognizing right-wing sentiment, they hear this and they go, oh, this guy's a fucking real right-winger. Like, what do you mean? He's doing the classic, like, oh, kids are gay now. Now, what is ironic about this was that what he was actually talking about, apparently, because I saw someone else show the full context of the conversation, was literally about unlearning homophobia because he has a gay brother, and he also personally played the role of a gay man. Like, so he's not like the conversation. Yeah, this is the thing I saw. Yeah, if you bother to watch the whole interview, you'd hear Anthony explain how he stepped out of his comfort zone to play the role of a gay man early in his career to understand his gay brother better and not repeat the same homophobic attitudes he grew up in the South. Like, it's just what's interesting about it is like this happens in every medium. This is just like a cultural thing that we all love to do. We hate when our enemies do it or our perceived ideological interlocutors do it. And then we love doing it ourselves. And sometimes we earnestly get duped by this stuff. We earnestly get duped by this stuff. We get clip chimped. It's basically the equivalent of not just clip chimping, but like simply in the old version of it, reading the headline of a news article and not reading the rest of the article and not realizing that like the headline of the article actually left a lot of stuff out, right? It's like if you only look at New York Times headlines, especially on an issue like Israel, and not like the rest of the articles where they bury the lead pretty far down the article, you're like, oh, Israel has not done anything wrong. They're the most moral nation on the planet. Sometimes they mess up a little bit, but overall they're trying their best, right? And it's like, that's how it works, right?
Yeah, so if you guys remember
and then there's obviously the other side of this where you got Captain America, they've killed masculinity. Like, there's battle lines are instantly drawn and people jump to this. People jump to their opinions. And then these wars are fought, right? Here, let's hear what he had to say.
South in the 90s.
He starts the other clip with saying he doesn't like the money spread 999 Rolex, 1,200,000 or 1,200 haircut individuals. Yeah. For the record, he's a black man on a black podcast talking about his own community and his own interpretation of what he is seeing amongst the youth. Something that I have also talked about as well. Something that I also fucking get annoyed by in general by American culture is like American consumerism and flex culture has like completely gotten to a new level at this point where people are just like, they substitute having fucking expensive watches or expensive things and living a lavish lifestyle as a as a mechanism to say, like, I'm a good person. I look at how successful I am, right? It's annoying. And before there's like immediately people going Gucci shirt. Like, I know you're joking when you say this, obviously, but like, there's never been a moment where I have been like, look at what I got, bitch. Like, I'm the man. I fucking made it. It's usually people, because I'm a leftist, people constantly throwing it back in my face. There's a difference between someone flexing and versus, you know, someone purchasing a stupid shirt in a moment of emotional weakness at Coachella multiple years ago. You do that every stream? What do you mean? Yeah, I do. I do my money spread. So that's it. It's like, it's very frustrating, right? I think that's a perfectly valid thing to get upset about, because I think it's a sign of like, it's a telltale sign of insecurity in general, right? You flex your biceps on us. Okay, that's a great example. Okay, that's a great example, because I think, jokes or not, like, I'm very proud of the amount of work I've put in to my own body. I'm very proud of my own accomplishments, and I want other people to also take the lesson. And that's why I like talk about my workouts, talk about my diet, talk about fitness in general, because I want to hopefully influence people positively and get them also to do the same thing. But even then, flexing your fucking biceps is like, well, yeah, you worked on it. You know what I mean? I totally think that like showcasing your prowess, like your art, or showing your body in that regard, I think is like infinitely more acceptable than just being like, look how fucking rich I am. Because while a lot of people have worked hard for it in terms of wealth, I think you never really know. And also luck plays a major factor in this. But yeah, I feel like he's talking about the Andrew Tate type. Yes, that's what he's talking about. Exactly. There is a real annoying culture, especially among the youth, that looks to guys like Andrew Tate and doesn't recognize the insecurity that these guys have, because if they were secure with themselves, like, they wouldn't constantly be talking about their Bugatti Veyron, right? Like, only insecure people do that.
In the 80s, you grow up homophobic, sexist, and racist. Like, we talking about the 80s and the 90s. That's just a fact. You know what I mean? So when I got to school, my roommate was gay. Like, I didn't know how to deal with that. Like, my brother's gay. I didn't know how to deal with that. So being a man, I used my art to better myself. I played Perry so that I could understand my brother better, so I could understand my friends better. Going to art school, a bunch of my friends were gay. You know what I mean? Like, when I was a kid, we had a record label. We had the first gay rapper. Nobody gave. You make good music, nobody cared. You know, Big Frida is famous here for sure.
Like, you think this guy is like a right-wing reactionary? I don't think so. Especially, like, a lot of people rob others of their social development, their world experiences. They never look to like how a person got to the position that they got to, right? Like, that's really interesting. That so many people will be like, well, I grew up sheltered, you know, I grew up in New York to like woke ass parents, and I expect everyone to arrive at my worldview and my position instantly, out of the womb. And it's like, of course, that's not going to be the case. You have to look at these things. You have to be. That's why I always say, be normal, be a human. The reason why I try to educate people on this process all the fucking time is because, unfortunately, with the way that our information environment works now, with no third spaces, no sense of community, no like going out and being around other human beings, and constantly being in a social situation where you are forced to interact with other humans on a regular basis, we spend most of our time socializing online. So a lot of the nuances that you normally would use to filter certain pieces of information, for example, are just gone, right? It's the difference between watching someone talk or watching a video of someone versus reading their quotes on paper. It's an entirely different format, and the outcome and what your takeaway will be entirely different. And the same goes for the difference between watching someone on a podcast for a minute and 30 seconds versus seeing them in the wild, you know, interacting with them in the wild. Not saying that like you're going to meet every single person, right? You're not going to, you're probably not going to encounter, what's his face, Anthony Mackie in the wild and get a full understanding of what his worldview is. But when I say be normal, what I mean is try to understand how a person that's in front of you that has this worldview, how did they get there? Okay? How do they arrive at these conclusions? I think it's very important to understand that.
For sure. You know what I mean? So the idea of being gay in New Orleans has always not only been supported, but it's been a part of the culture. But with me, I needed to figure out what was my holdup, what was my insecurity about that. And once I played that role, I realized everybody deserves to be loved. It's not my job to say who you love or who should love you. If you loved, I'm happy for you. That don't mean I'm gay. You know, so Perry was more so a statement piece for me with the love and admiration for my brother, with the appreciation and respect of my friends, for that culture. It really put me in a position where I think it made me a better actor because I had to go so far out the box. I had to go to the furthest spectrum.
Yeah, dude is woke as fuck. Lamont people fell for the clip chip. Damn. But even the clip chip itself, I think it's massaged in a way. Like this podcast in and of itself wasn't even trying to make him look bad. This is they probably have an opinion that is a little bit more conservative, right? Socially on that front. And instantly people jump to this and make up their own minds about what they think is happening. I watched this thinking he about to say some wild red pill crazy shit or something. Bro even played a gay role in support of his gay brother. Nah, y'all internet motherfuckers is not real. It was a real figment of my imagination. The fact that this week got 100K likes is all bots. It's got to be. You motherfuckers don't exist in real life. Y'all despawn when the internet turn off, said your rage. And yeah, I think the reason why I talked about this is because like it happens all the time. This kind of stuff happens all the time. And even I fall for it. Because when I saw this tweet and I just read this, okay, and I read this right here, and I saw the tweet, I thought, oh, wow, okay, so maybe Anthony Mackie's like a bit reactionary because that's how it's presented. But in fact, the only thing he was talking about is like positive masculinity and teaching his kids to be like good men, teaching his male children not to be like not to fall into the Andrew Tate trap, you know, like that's it. And I think that you know we just gotta be a little bit more. We gotta be a little bit more gracious and a little bit more forgiving, even if people who engage in somewhat reactionary commentary, right? Because I mean, this is why I always try to preach some semblance of tolerance and grace to those who might even in context come across as intolerant, with the understanding that they are all, at the end of the day, a product of their social conditioning, a product of their material realities. Leftists who understand that America is this like hateful nation, leftists who understand that like there's so much systemic discrimination, oftentimes forget what the impact of said systemic discrimination will look like in the collective consciousness of those who don't really think about this stuff deeply and have never really entertained a counterexample and just kind of simply are responding to all the things that they see, all the things that they take for granted. That's it. But yeah, same goes for every single person. Every single person will eventually find themselves in the throes of being misunderstood. It is what it is. And the reason why I use the Anthony Mackie example is because I personally saw that. And I initially thought, oh, what the hell? Like, is this guy like weirdly right wing or whatever? Because I hadn't even watched the clip. Okay. And then I investigated a little bit further. I was lucky enough to be able to encounter someone else who had investigated a little bit further. And that completely changed my mind on it, right? That's it. And I think that's a good way that's a good teachable moment, right? For everyone. No room for intellectual elitism while we're all trying to live in solidarity. Yeah, I mean, there is a balance to everything. And I think that balance also should factor in, for example, like not treating people like they're idiots either. Like I'm an advocate for not doing like dense theory. And I think everyone plays a different role. My role is to do agitative propaganda, of course, and to help Americans understand their class position and who the real, like what the real vectors of harm are in our current hierarchy, right? That's my goal. That's my role. But that doesn't mean that like I have this attitude that like the average American, the average working class person is too stupid and too dumb to understand theory either. So there's a balance there as well. But yeah, it's important to recognize that he was clipped out of context last month when he explained what it means to be Captain America, but that time he pissed off the MAGA crowd. Yeah. And now the MAGA crowd is going to make propaganda off of this, right? Like they've killed masculinity. Captain America sounds alarm. Well, yeah, that's important. It's a little brief moment, but we'll good TikTok regarding
Larry,
conditioning and normies.
Correct? Come on up. You are next. And my understanding is you were in the overflow room?
Yes,
How many more are up there?
quite a few.
Okay, if there are any of them that are going to be testifying, we're getting down there on slips, so if they want to make their way down here, if they plan to speak, I would invite them down here now. So, all right, Larry, the floor is yours. You got 2 minutes.
First of all, I'd like to apologize to you people. I was invited here to give my support for Bill 401. I have very little knowledge of gay people and things like that there. So when I came here, my eyes were open. I was one of the critics that sat on the side and made the decisions there was only 2 genders. So I got an education that was unbelievable. And I don't know just exactly how to say this, but my perspective for people have changed. So I don't take up no more of your time. I'd like to apologize for being here, and I learned a very lot about this group of people.
Bro, I'm telling you right now, this is why I always fucking say, and this is a truth that every single trans person in this community knows, okay? Being fucking normal and chill, especially as a trans person out in the real world, goes the distance, okay? It is like the most successful weapon you have. You will brick the brain of grandpas like this, or even your own coworkers like this. Like it played a role in my development. You know what I mean? If the starting position is like 2 genders and it's a rigid binary and that's all you hear and that's all you know, and then you got like a normal ass chill trans person being like, nah, this is not, that's not the case. Like it truly does allow people to change their minds on these issues, This isn't also what? Why are you talking about trans people? I haven't met a trans person in my entire life. I doubt you have even met a trans person. Like, why do we talk about people who barely exist? Chatter, get down. You're fucking surrounded. Okay. Let me tell you, this is perhaps the stupidest community to say that in. There are a lot of trans people in this community. Okay. That's awesome. I don't disagree in terms of like there aren't that many trans people in general. The hyper focus on trans people is totally constructed and manufactured, and the anger and resentment that people feel towards trans people is because like people are gearing others to get mad at them. They're a vulnerable population. They're in the margins, and they're constantly presented as the villains for very cynical propaganda purposes. So you're not necessarily completely wrong on this issue, but like obviously every now and then we're gonna be talking about trans people, considering that they're like less than 1% of the population, but are comprised, but make up like 95% of the resentment on the right. It's insane. But yeah, according to the Hasanabi census this past year, 14% of this community is trans. So trans people are 14 times more represented in this community than the American population. So, I've shaken Hasanabi's hand so much for being a foe, shaking my head. Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize if you feel like you were duped because I keep saying I'm a foe to the LGBT community. I will continue highlighting the trans wrongs while sometimes speaking out about trans rights. Okay? I am an enemy. Okay? I am an enemy to the LGBT community. Make no mistake. No, not 40%, 14%. I'm not Germa. Okay? No, my trans audience population size is not 40%. That's Germa. He's a couple doors down. Yeah, right-wing commentators dominate social media. It's not even close. True. Obviously, like, the metrics for this are not the best. Like, they're just simply looking at like raw follower numbers and follower counts. I don't think you can make a decent assessment of like who has the most motion, for example, or who gets the most, who has the most like unique reach. Because I would go so far as to say that like Asmongold's reach as a right-wing content creator is far greater than Ben Shapiro's reach right now at this stage. So, like the size here, or even like my reach versus like the Young Turks' reach, or my reach versus Trevor Noah's reach, right? Like, I think that I have a much larger reach at this stage as opposed to like Trevor Noah as a liberal or leftist or progressive left-leaning content creator. But this just looks at like raw follower counts. Like, or here, I'll give you another example. Patrick Bet David and Asmongold together have, I think, a much, much larger reach overall than the likes of Ben Shapiro, right? Or even Russell Brand, really. So it's not the best way to showcase like who has more influence. But yes, in terms of like raw follower counts, the collective follower totals, yes, the right wing dominates. But I think in terms of raw output, in terms of like audience penetration, right wing content creators also dominate on that front as well. Like they really, really, really do. It's not an accident that like online spaces seem more and more right wing. And I think Twitter, like one of the social media platforms directly opening up the floodgates of neo-Nazi commentary, I think played a fairly large role in this. And I was wrong. Okay. Initially, I thought, oh, Twitter is not the best platform. It's not the biggest platform. Who cares? I was wrong. I think that like even if it's a tiny platform, it's still one of the main social media platforms. And having one of the main social media platforms very clearly turn far right definitely played a big role in even changing the outcomes and changing the political dynamics in other platforms as well, other social media platforms as well, because there is like all of these social media platforms like still work alongside one another. And I would say that like Twitch becoming more right wing in general is because of Twitter. You know, I think that my assessment initially was wrong, where I said it's not going to be that significant. It's not Twitter being super right wing. I wasn't, I'm owning up to my wrong analysis, but also at the same time, I wasn't like making a big deal about this perspective in general. But still, it's not necessarily that there's like a large number of what? How come Asmongold is red? He's spitting on Trump all the time. Asmongold is criticizing Trump very much. Yeah. I'm sorry, dude. I think if you're reacting to Trump as like a based free speech defender and you say you want to dress up as Ash Ketchum to do mass deportation ride-alongs, it's going to be really hard for someone, especially people in this community, to fucking hear you and go, yeah, you're probably correct on this. You know, that's like saying Hassan is critical of LeBron James. Yeah, unless you mean he spits on Trump's dick before he gargles it. You know, great new piece about you in chat. WBUR.org. The stream is up. The politics of Twitch personality Hassan Piker and his dedicated community. Oh, this is the new one. This is a new piece that came out, right? Yeah, March 14th.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S.
Parent origin story video for Tim Houthi.
Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Support for this podcast comes from Is Business Broken? In
love with a celebrity.
People are into this Timothée Chalamet. They say he's a Houthi, a fighter, he's hot. They say he looks like Chalamet.
Yes. Not incredibly skinny Bob Dylan impersonator Timothée Chalamet. Tim Houthi Chalamet.
The apparent origin story video for Tim Houthi Chalamet was pretty unremarkable on the surface.
Just a guy with curly dark hair steering a small boat with one hand and holding his phone in selfie mode with the other. A light blue skiff bathed in the sun. Very mindful, very demure. A much bigger ship hulking in the background with big white lettering that said Galaxy Leader. This was 33 seconds of, honestly, not that much.
But then, like that, this video had 13 million views. Because, I mean, look at him. Okay, I don't understand why people obsess over actor Timothée Chalamet either, but Tim Houthi Chalamet's celebrity was in some ways an example of a new way that people are consuming news and information. Coming at it kind of sideways. At least that was true for me.
Tim Houthi was how we learned more about the Red Sea and the attacks.
Yeah, this is WBUR. It's a NPR local for Boston. I did this interview, I think, months ago, like months and months ago, and I believe they just only recently came out with it. But every day, 7 days a week, for 8 hours or more, Hassan Piker is live on the video game streaming platform Twitch. This is where he shares his political commentary with a dedicated community of viewers, many of whom fall into a particularly sought-after electoral demographic, young men. One of the dominant theories about re-election of President Donald Trump in November 2024 was that it was aided by commentators like Piker, brash and broy. But Piker is a socialist, considerably to the left of the mainstream Democratic Party. He gets into streamer beefs, but he also talks a lot about empathy and bringing a spirit of charitability to political discourse. What kind of effect does he have on his community and their political activism? Who's tuning in 50 hours a week to get their news from one guy? Spoiler, it's not just 20-something men. And really, who is that guy? Endless Thread talks to Hassan Piker and his fans. Did they interview my fans too? That's crazy. Weren't you live for this interview? No. I did this offline like months ago. I forget exactly when.
To the Red Sea, where the UK says Iranian-backed Houthi rebels have carried out their largest attack so far on shipping lanes. The Ministry of Defense.
That is the BBC. But we didn't first listen to that report until a few weeks ago.
No. My understanding of Yemeni fighters disrupting a key international shipping route in reaction to the war in Gaza started in the diffuse, crackling, digital, foamy broadcast waves of the internet, somewhere between TikTok and Twitch.
Okay, that's crazy that this is a straight-up journalist on NPR, Boston Public Radio, openly admitting that his perspective shifted on the issue that the Ansar Allah movement was presenting, the reasons as to why they were dealing with the Red Sea in the ways that they were on my fucking Twitch stream. Okay? That's crazy. Hey, Rashid, how old are you? Where are you from originally in Yemen?
Let's orient ourselves a bit here. We're talking about the southern end of the Red Sea, which flows past Yemen, Eritrea,
and Djibouti.
It's this key shipping route because it brings giant ships back and forth between the Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea and the east coast of Africa and the Mediterranean Sea and Europe. It is a massive shortcut for getting goods between the East and the West.
An age-old plan to shorten the distance between Europe and the Orient by linking the Red Sea to the Mediterranean.
Yes, to get from the east to the west, you have to head through the Middle East. And when these attacks started a little over a year ago, the ships under attack were traveling up and down the coastline of Yemen, which has a front seat to the Red Sea's shipping route.
The Red Sea, the Suez Canal that connects it to the Mediterranean, this is a zone that's had a ton of all kinds of commercial shipping for a long time.
And a lot of conflict. Since forever. Since Moses.
The long history of man's efforts to create a passage through the Egyptian land barrier can be traced back to 2000 BC.
The Houthis are a group of fighters in Yemen that are vaguely associated with Iran, and they're in their own intense armed conflict with their neighbor, Saudi Arabia.
They've driven a civil war in Yemen against the government there, with a resulting intense humanitarian crisis. We are not going to try and explain this conflict further right now.
Which is probably for the best. But the Houthis have been reportedly doing this because they believe Israel, the U.S., and its allies were doing nothing to stop the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
It's not.
It seems fair to say that, right?
It's not AI. Not everything is AI. You need to stop being brain dead Zoomers. Secondly, there's not much else I can do in terms of like visual, visual guides here, because while we conducted this interview technically on camera, and obviously I didn't know that this was going to be the way that they were going to cover this interview, because we talked about a variety of different issues. This is a radio broadcast, okay? This is a radio broadcast for WBUR, which is the Boston NPR affiliate, okay? This is Boston NPR. It's an interview conducted for a radio broadcast for the show Endless Threads. I assume the podcast Endless Thread. Please, I just want you guys, I have never heard this either. I want to hear what their perspective is. I didn't know this was going to be about, I did not know that this was going to be about like my interview with Timothée Chalamet. I didn't even realize that they were going to predominantly feature that interview, okay? God, you guys are so annoying. Put some Subway surfers up. Just watch, please. Please, just watch.
Right now, politics and armed conflict have a much more direct and highly personal impact on daily life in Yemen, to say nothing of the larger region.
But much of the way we experience this story in the U.S., unless we have a personal or family connection to Yemen or the merchant mariner industry, this feels and is pretty far off.
Timothée Chalamet, also known as Rashid Al-Haddad online, brought it closer somehow, especially after he did a big interview with what we might call a news delivery service.
I'm doing journalism, chat. Calm down, okay?
Not the New York Times or BBC or NPR, organizations that might at least have a few reporters stationed in the region near the Red Sea.
What platform is best to talk on? He said Instagram. Okay, that works.
By the way, 19-year-old Timothée Chalamet said he was not a Houthi fighter, but he did seem to have the trappings of an influencer.
He said, Hasna, wait a few minutes until I set up the lighting. Bro, this dude is a professional, dude.
The news service getting the big interview with the Chalamet of the moment also had good lighting, access to translators, and a huge engaged audience. Associated Press, Reuters,
It's kind of crazy because, like, I do make the sausage in real time. Normally, you never see how the sausage is made. You see a finalized product where news outlets that will do exactly what I did in real time in front of you guys will basically like they were saying, they'll have a station journalist, probably not in Sanaa, but they'll have like an affiliate maybe on the ground or somewhere close enough. They'll have Arabic translators or can speak Arabic and will interview this person. And you don't normally see this happening in real time. That's, I think, a unique aspect of the way I operate. And then you see the finished product where like that entire interview in and of itself, and even like how we put it together, would never be seen by the world, right? You would only see like maybe 2 to 3 minutes, like specific answers that you're hearing from Timothée Chalamet at the time.
NBC? No. More of a dude who's a professional dude.
Hassan Piker.
People say, Hasanabi, you've changed. It's like, motherfucker, I haven't changed. You did, bitch. I've never heard a Democrat be like, man, what do we got to do about this fucking military budget? We are literally the last political space online that is a holdout, that is majority men, that isn't like insanely politically.
Not insanely effed politically, maybe, but definitely polarizing. And we're not even really talking politics yet. We're talking generations.
Whenever we ask people if they know Hassan Piker, it goes one of 3 ways. It's either no idea who you're talking about.
Or, oh yeah, is that hot guy?
Or the streamer? Yeah, definitely. And these answers divide along generational lines. Hassan also divides people on feelings about the war in Gaza, political lines in the U.S., too.
Also, lines of gender. But you take all the people on one side of all those lines and put them together?
You get an impressive audience. 3 million followers just on the video game streaming site Twitch. Another 1.5 million on YouTube. And his hours-long live streams. There can be 20 to 30,000 people watching and listening to Hassan at any given moment.
That's how you know. That's how you know this is old, because now it's up there. Now it's more than that. Now it's a Saturday, so we got 25 in here, but now it's 30 to 40,000, as you guys know. So, just saying, this was an older interview.
That's an audience that competes with WBUR's largest average broadcast radio listening audience in Boston. The same audience as our entire station in a major metro area. But it's one Twitch stream, one guy, Hassan Piker, 33 years old.
He's ripped, a true Chad.
And as Americans celebrate or slide into despair following the second election of...
Chad, stop saying this is AI. It's not AI. I literally had a conversation with these people. Can you please stop saying this is... What is wrong with people, man? What the hell? Why do you guys keep saying AI? It's not... Like, I talked to these human beings, okay? It was a real interview.
President Donald J. Trump, an increasingly popular Chad.
I'm AI.
Thanks to an increasingly popular, seemingly endless stream.
There's a couple things that I talk about that, like, basically break people's brains. Peter Thiel owns the country now. You understand? You don't want solutions. You don't want to understand why this violence happens. I do.
I'm Ben Brock Johnson.
I'm Amory Sievertson, and you're listening to Endless Thread.
We're coming to you from WBUR, Boston's NPR news stream.
And on today's episode, a look at how the media landscape and news consumption are changing through one example. The guy people are calling, quote, the Joe Rogan of the left, who has bad news for people who say things like, he's the Joe Rogan of the left.
I just don't think that we can podcast our way out of this problem. Like, I just don't think that the
Democrats...
Democrats...
Come on, man. Come on.
Whatever you've heard of Hassan, whatever you think of him, however you found him, or if you've never heard of him or found him, let's start with some simple facts. His parents are Turkish. His father is a political scientist and economist who has helped support the Future Party in that country.
Chatters who have never listened to a singular NPR piece, I think, don't understand NPR voice, and that's why they're thinking, like, this sounds like AI. No, dude, they dictate perfectly, okay? That's what it is. That's just, they enunciate in a way where it almost comes across as, like, robotic. And even, like, the cuts that they put in with my voice sounds like AI as well. They got NPR voice. And also the way that they like cut certain stuff, like even there's like an NPR filter, I guess, where it also sounds like I'm doing AI voice.
In opposition to the right-wing Justice and Development Party. His mom is an architectural historian teaching at the Institute of Technology in New Jersey.
And Piker's uncle started the Young Turks, the popular progressive news network that began on the radio, jumped to YouTube, and is now played on some television channels.
4.5 long years of we're making progress. We're not making progress. You're heading off a cliff, dude, and you don't even realize it.
Hassan's of an even younger generation than the Young Turks. He's on YouTube, but he's most established on the video game streaming platform Twitch, where people watch other people play video games. And in Hassan's case, people watch him talking about politics. But if you're going to stream on Twitch, you're probably going to do both.
The first time I came across him was when, in the election of 2020, he streamed a Get Out the Vote game of Among Us with Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar. When you watch this video, as AOC gets onto the stream with Hassan, he seems pretty psyched.
We came a long way.
Here we go.
From 15 people watching me play Fortnite with motherfucking Felix Biederman to playing Among Us with the top content creators and also two of my favorite politicians.
The Among Us stream, just a little more than an hour-long total, netted nearly 700,000 concurrent viewers. Just to give you a sense, that competes with the prime viewing period between 8 and 11 p.m. of CNN, which, by the way, is also putting Hassan on.
This is Hassan Piker.
This is my dog, Kaya.
Piker was 29 back then, and about to watch Biden sweep into office and topple Donald Trump's attempt at re-election in the midst of a brutal pandemic. When you watch this 4-year-old stream, Hasan seems legit giddy at what's happening. And it's this odd combination of video game nerdery and progressive political energy. Or maybe it's not that odd of a combination.
Hasan Piker represents a huge change in the way people consume information in 2025. Especially digital natives, people who have only really been around after the internet and computers.
Increasingly, they don't.
I was thinking a lot about this, actually. You know how people always ask me, Hasan, like, what has your attitude really changed on? I don't think my values have changed. I've been fairly consistent on that stuff for the past decade. And you can check that against, like, you know, commentary from the past 10 years that's, you know, out there, right? From the Young Turks all the way until now, and you'll see I'm advocating for the same exact shit. Having said that, there is one thing that I was thinking about that has changed. I think that, like, my hope in the Democratic Party, I think, has rooted almost entirely. Like, I always had this attitude that regardless of the fact that one of the two major parties in a bourgeois democracy is never going to bring about revolution. I understood that on principle, but I still believe that there was a way to, like, there was a way to engage in harm reduction. There was a way to engage in harm reduction that the Democrats were going to abide by if you voted for them. And I think, like, year over year, election cycle after election cycle, the Democrats consistently showed me and anyone else that was paying attention that they were not interested in doing harm reduction at all. And I think that's the reason why when I see someone like Dean, right? The liberal Spider-Man debate Dean, right? Like, I understand as a 19-year-old, if this is your first foray into, if this is your first, like, political cycle that you're actively defending the Democrats on, like, I get why you would be more, I don't want to say naive, but, like, you'd be more hopeful that the Democrats will do the right thing. Whereas, you know, go through like 3 of those and you'll understand very quickly that optimism in that regard is quickly going to be cast aside for an assumption that the Democrats are basically controlled opposition. This isn't like every single Democrat, for sure. And my attitude, I would say, shifted from, Democrats are definitely better than the Republicans to, they're marginally better than the Republicans to harm reduction to we need to use the platform that the Democrats offer to existing progressive voices in an effort to continue building up a labor movement, to continue building out like outside pressure, outside mechanisms of pressure that are not immediately within the lap of the party, to like, I don't even know where we're going at this point. Like, I just, I've never been closer to an advocacy for building a third party from the ground up than this very moment. I will admit that. It's something that, like, I wouldn't say I'm as far as, Michael from Pennsylvania is on this issue. I truly don't, I don't know. I truly can't see a way out of this beyond like either completely reconstructing the party or looking for a alternative, like developing an alternative at all. I tweeted about this this morning. Who could have seen this coming? Everyone. We kept yelling about this. I think it's time for the liberals who scream at the left to bury the hatchet and actively reconstruct the Democratic Party to be a real opposition party with a bold vision of change or build a real alternative. And it's just like, I don't know how we do that. I'm being radically honest with you. I don't know how we do that, but changes need to happen immediately.
Compartmentalize their different flavors of content. They don't go to one place for news, another place for lifestyle, information, etc. They go to the same place for all the things. And usually that same place is not a brand per se, it's a person.
We wanted to hear from some of these people, so we reached out on Reddit and got a bunch of responses. Some Hasan fans have requested that we only use their first name because, well, Hasan takes political positions that some employers might view as extreme.
I had gone through different posts, reading comments because I just basically view reading Reddit as like people watching, and kind of bookmark Hasan in my head as like, I got to figure this guy out.
This is Janet. She's in her early 40s, lives in Colorado, goes against a few of the larger characteristics of Hasan's audience, but she's part of a growing demographic.
Percentage of male went down. Percentage of female went up. We're up big.
That's Hasan streaming his annual Hasanabi community census on Twitch. Hasan's subreddit lists, quote, 151,000 comrades as its follower count, which is where we found Janet.
Janet started out reading Hasanabi hate on Reddit, but she's a comrade now. She's watching his Twitch stream every day. And it's not just Janet who's taking it all in.
My toddler gets a little bit of TV time in the morning, so when Hasan starts, the TV goes off for him and we throw him into lunch. He knows the Hasan is streaming song and we'll start doing sign language for food when that song comes on, so I've kind of ruined the baby. But
a number of the people we talk to watch and listen to Hasan while at work or while doing schoolwork. But Janet's home with her baby, so...
It's on my 80-inch television. It's in the front of my living room. We have a really open floor plan, so I can hear it while I'm cleaning, while I'm hanging out with the baby, doing flashcards and whatever. He's basically just like our talk radio during the day, except we get to look at him.
We heard this a lot, actually. Hasan as replacement for the radio.
But he's streaming video, too, so it's pretty similar to cable news. And while it's not a 24-hour Hasan cycle, it is 7 days a week, along with a serious regimen of weight training, which you kind of have to do if you're sitting in a gaming chair for that long every day. He has a background team running a Discord chat, doing video graphics, and managing the community.
I got little babies listening. I got to stop cursing. This is why I got to stop cursing.
Behind the scenes.
This consistency has, over time, just grown his reach, which in turn turned the heads of the people trying to run the country in the last election. Hasan was invited to the Democratic Convention. He was looked at by many in the run-up to the election as Exhibit A that Kamala Harris and company were talking to the right people to help them talk to the people who were going to vote. Then, the other team's podcast Reach Out game turned out to be a lot more full-on.
The following is a conversation with Donald Trump on this, the Lex Friedman podcast.
How long have we been talking?
A long time.
Let's go.
Probably like 3 hours.
He's one of the most famous people on earth, and I'm grateful for this chance to learn more about the man behind the headlines. Today's guest is Donald Trump.
The Associated Press has called the presidency for Republican Donald Trump.
Ever since, Hasan has been on what almost feels like a group therapy tour, talking to a lot of legacy media organizations and helping to explain to them how they could have possibly missed this thing that the polls really bore out, that young men were breaking for Trump.
I think Trump speaks to male insecurities better.
It's not necessarily flooding the market with like a bunch of liberals. Like, oh, if we had like 8 more Pod Save Americas that kind of look like me, for example, like more bro-y, right? Then that would be fine. It's like, no, you can't podcast your way out of this problem.
There it is again. You can't podcast your way out of this problem. And yet, it seems like if the Democratic Party could podcast or stream its way into the hearts of young men, Hasan could be their guy. Because he courts more than the Janets. He also courts a lot of Jadens.
Right now, Heber Springs has a population of about 7,000 people.
24-year-old Jaden didn't find Hasan Piker in his hometown of Heber Springs, Arkansas.
It's a pretty close-knit community.
Arkansas heads, rise up. My slander against Arkansas has not gone unnoticed. I apologize.
Community. A lot of people know each other. A lot of people will go to the same church, for example. All the beliefs of everyone are pretty much shared throughout the entire community.
That shared belief system, in Jaden's experience, has always been church-focused. Growing up, he says a lot of the social interaction was through church or trips with church groups. One of these particular trips, to some cabins in the woods, he remembers in particular.
It was cold, it was windy, it was so miserable.
There was always a theme or topic of discussion for these trips.
For this trip, they decided to make it about homosexuality.
Jaden thinks this trip happened when gay marriage got national protections in the U.S. He says that the trip turned out to be a bunch of adults telling a bunch of middle schoolers about how homosexuality and gay marriage were ruining society.
I had so many experiences like that, kind of around church and things like that.
When Jaden started to spend more time online in high school, he discovered perspectives that didn't really match the homogeneity of Heber Springs.
And when he went to the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, his own belief structure started to shift even more. Jaden says straight up that the only reason his belief structure has changed is because college and the internet.
Which is where he found Hasan.
I thought that the way he broke down certain topics was just really easy to understand, easy to digest.
Digest what exactly? Hasan's worldview.
Whether it's, American foreign policy being ultimately damaging to the world, or whether it be an advocacy for enshrining abortion rights in the Constitution, gun control, like reasonable gun safety measures that must be implemented, focusing on universal health care and free college education. All of these things have not improved at all.
Jaden says that Hasan Piker's point of view on a bunch of different topics felt logical and approachable, and that they were ultimately compassionate towards America's most underprivileged people. Unhoused people, veterans, racial minorities, working class Americans, etc.
It was definitely sort of a gradual realization that a lot of these things that the church and conservative-minded people were saying were concepts and ideas that actually went against the Bible in some ways. I think that was kind of the biggest contradiction that I sort of realized was when they talk about politics, it's pretty clear to realize that these people are not 100% for loving thy neighbor and looking out for those less fortunate than you.
Jaden.
Back in Heber Springs, Jaden's parents and his brothers are not watching one of Hasan Piker's streams 3 days a week, like Jaden is. His parents are watching Fox News. His little brother?
He's definitely sort of that Joe Rogan, Till Coney, or Kill Tony, Andrew Schultz kind of audience member.
So family conversations, even though Jaden gets along well with his parents and siblings, can be a little tricky. But Jaden has a new vocabulary.
Definitely one benefit of tuning into Hasan and all these other left-leaning political commentators is that you're able to have discussions with these people and introduce new perspectives on looking at things that they have definitely not been exposed to before.
Maybe one of the reasons Hasan resonates with people like Jaden, who identifies as a cis white male, is that in a lot of ways, he looks the part.
Hasan has said he was teased as a younger kid for being, as people in the 1950s might say, kind of a shrimp. And like many young people before him, Hasan channeled that teasing into time at the gym.
Which in turn feeds a persona that on the surface might feel like it's part of the manosphere that many of us have heard about. The online spaces where men prioritize alpha masculine behavior and ideals above all else. He does look and a little bit sound the part.
Bruh. Dude. Oh, dude. Holy dude. It's like, bitch, what do you mean?
But this is another case where you have to look closely enough to see the differences between streamers, who definitely don't line up along the same clear, bright lines between, say, Fox and MSNBC, or even NPR and the Wall Street Journal.
And yet, the streamer world is drawing more and more of the audience that used to go to big broadcast news organizations away from that and into things like a video game streaming platform that might have a bunch of political thought mixed up with a game of Among Us or Counter-Strike.
Hasan Piker has drawn a lot of controversy for his positions and his statements. And I'm not talking about
bitch.
I'm talking more about,
if you look at the civilian deaths versus the deaths of soldiers, Hamas's percentages are infinitely better than Israel. That's just facts. So no, Hamas is the lesser evil.
If you're on for 8 hours a day.
I love that line because it is so, that right there is so perfectly, that right there is crafted so perfectly for liberals to go, well, my conditioning dictates that I'm always on board with the lesser evil. Like, it is virtually impossible. The only people that will have issue with that are people that are already completely supercharged with pro-Israel propaganda, that where they will actively deny the truth. The genocide lovers hate that line. Yeah, that's why when Fox News posted that on their article saying that like I'm a terrorist or whatever. I didn't really have an issue with that being posted on that article, because that is a correct statement and that is exactly what I mean. I'm saying exactly what I mean. It wasn't like out of context at all. It is something that I stand by,
7 days a week, speaking to a large audience of young people, and your general topic is political thought, you're going to eventually say some things that stir the pot. Hasan has opted into the battle royale and tete-a-tete world of streamers.
Like this face-off with a famous streamer called Destiny.
I'm almost positive that you said that you wouldn't vote for Joe Biden, that you said you would like go shack up and live in the woods somewhere, which is cool because you have the privilege to do so. But
I said I'm considering not voting for Joe Biden and living up in the woods and living in an anarcho-primitivist lifestyle, which is like the second. It's a meme, dude.
Okay.
Destiny, a streamer known for being pugnacious, had a falling out with
old ass debate. That's like they went back into the mines for that one. I don't even remember having that conversation. That's crazy.
Hasan that was seismic in the streaming world.
And Ethan Klein.
Even back then, that dude was still doing the same thing where it's like, wow, you made a joke, but I will actually take it completely seriously and make it seem as though it's real political commentary. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to live in the woods. I'm not an anarcho-primitivist either. Like, well, I've destroyed you in the marketplace of ideas because you have been found making a joke.
An American-Israeli YouTuber and podcaster who used to collaborate with Hasan on a podcast has since sworn off that partnership.
Mostly because of the duo's inability to have a measured debate on
brother. Okay.
What has been happening in Gaza. Just a few weeks ago, Ethan released a 2-hour-long takedown attack
By the way, Ethan is not Israeli. He's not. I mean, he's an American. He is an American through and through, like straight up. He lived in Israel, but he's not Israeli.
Hasan, much of which seemed
I don't even know if he has an Israeli passport.
Focused on Hasan's support of Palestinians.
Hasan's chat had been calling me a Zionist, baby-killing genocider. Maybe it is unreasonable that I'm asking him to moderate his chat for a friend.
Hasan responded in kind while on vacation in Japan.
Yeah, dude, I am pro-Palestine. That's it. If that's news to you, you are the dumbest baby on the planet.
This, we can say, is giving streamer, big time. Though big news organizations do it too. Newspapers throwing shade at each other through competitive reporting and op-eds, even presidential endorsements.
What's interesting about this piece is that this was far before, like, I interviewed, and they briefly asked me about Ethan in that interview, but this was far before the content puke. This was far before, that back and forth in its entirety. So it's like interesting that they're like, I wonder what they did with this, because I have no idea what the final product looks like. But I do remember like briefly talking about it, and at the time, because when this interview happened, I still was. When this interview initially happened, I still was very much trying not to talk about Ethan at all. So that's why they have snippets of me from Japan in the piece.
Hey, remember when newspapers did presidential endorsements?
Somebody check the Jeff Bezos Twitch stream.
A slap fight is a slap fight. But underneath the bros and the bitches, the bluster, the muscles, Hasan's pushing political thought too.
So it's time for us to @ him in the chat. And we will when we come right back.
Oh, there's no more mention of this after the fact?
The end of this pod platforms.
Though instead of a brand of, hey, I'm just a guy who used to host Fear Factor asking questions, Hasan's brand is more, dare we say, earnest? Let's find out.
I'm Hasan Piker, also known as Hasanabi on Twitch.
Why are people adding me? What? Why are people adding me? I'm confused. They said it? Oh, I didn't hear it.
Or Hasan the Han on Twitter. Or Hasan D. Piker on TikTok and many other social medias. I'm 33 years old.
Why does it sound like that?
So I have all of these different usernames in every single website. It's a big mess.
Do you remember your first screen name?
My first screen name was actually Hellboy Hasan.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was way back in the day.
Can I ask what might seem like an overly simplistic question, but why stream for 8 hours a day?
I really enjoy it. And also, there's a lot of news to cover. Outside of that, I think that there's also a lot of fun to be had besides talking just about the news and doing outreach to a broader community and trying to get them on board to at least like view the world from a more charitable perspective to the way I see it.
So there's like a mission for you in that altruistic mission.
I mean, I don't know if it's altruistic. Some people might consider it to be, propagandistic, I guess, or is that even a word? They would say it's propaganda. And
would you say it's propaganda?
That. I do, yeah. I don't think propaganda necessarily is a bad word, but it's considered a bad word when someone uses it in especially the Western world. But yeah, I think that you can be honest with the things that you're talking about.
Now, Hasan told us he's a political commentator, not a journalist. But what gives some journalists indigestion about Hasan is that some people do get their news primarily, or in some cases exclusively, from Hasan, as if he really is the news.
As you've heard from Hasan already, depending upon when you jump into the stream and how long you listen, it could be both.
I mean, there's definitely something different.
Megan is a 37-year-old from Connecticut.
If something happens and I'm not there for it, it's like I missed that moment where like the chat tells him like Trump just got shot. And then like immediately he's switching over to the live feed. And then right away chatters are sending him links like this is what we know so far. It's addictive. It makes me not want to miss it.
In a way, Hasan is really a new filter for the news. When it happens, he's reading articles of real news outlets and commenting in front of his audience, and his live chat is feeding those articles to him in real time. It's almost like a live updating discussion feedback loop where Hasan and his audience are talking to each other about what is happening.
Megan didn't find Hasan looking for news, though.
I think it was actually his Chad Vice segment that I saw first.
Can you still not nut?
Oh yeah, yes.
Oh no! Yeah, end it, dog. What are you doing?
Yes, Chad Vice, where Hasan Piker gives advice to dudes about how to be a Chad. In internet parlance, a desirable, successful, with the ladies kind of guy. And Hasan's goal seems to be to do this Chad Vice segment without all the misogyny and toxicity.
Again, a perfect example of the Gen Z and millennial audience's habits. Less about the network, more about a person they trust and the community.
People, I think, come in and they're like, well, that's a cool guy. He seems progressive. He doesn't seem like an asshole. He looks kind of bro-y, maybe a little too bro-y for me. Or maybe that's beneficial for a lot of young men, that they look at someone that they identify with, like a white dude who likes to work out and play video games, and they go, like this seems like a different community than the one I'm used to.
If the manosphere is what insecure young men are discovering and pouring into as they search for a way to navigate masculinity in what some might call a boring dystopia, Hasan can represent a different set of solutions for the same problems.
Specifically, like he always says, if you put in the hard work, if you focus on bettering yourself, like everybody can be a 7.
Alex is another Hasanabi fan we talked to.
His journey going to the gym, losing weight, and how it like changed his mindset. He was also like a big inspiration for me in that regard. I started going to the gym. I ended up losing like 60 pounds, I think.
Hell yeah.
And now like today, like years later, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in.
Alex hasn't just transformed physically because of Hasan. He's also changed his politics and even what he's studying in college so that he can be a lawyer who works on labor rights.
Had I not found Hasan's community, I like to think that I'd maybe still have these views, but there's no guarantee, I'm lucky that I found this community as opposed to, something else.
Granted, like Alex,
I can't wait for liberals to clip certain aspects of this interview, get mad at the journalists, call them, Hasan dick riders, harass them into oblivion, and never show their sheltered audience this aspect of my commentary and what I try to do. Desperately try to get people to be the best version of themselves and desperately try to get people to see the world in a more empathetic lens. Never that. Always just like, oh man, this guy's a terrorist supporter. He loves terrorism. He's getting his chatters to love terrorism. Why? Because he's against the Israeli government doing a genocide. Let's see. Let's see if my prediction on this is correct. Okay. H3H3 production subreddit. Apparently, Hassan said again on stream that there's no proof of Hamas committed. NPR loves terrorism now, I guess. Right on the money, baby. 39 minutes ago. He's in here. The person who posted this is in here, or at least saw the Twitter post or saw my Instagram post and instantly ran to the liberal H3H3 subreddit, supposedly progressive H3H3 subreddit. I'll never understand how people can be this influential. Wait, what? I'll never understand how people can just be these influential media personalities and be so ignorant. There's no justice in the world. Please, what will it take for you to shake yourself out of this stupor? These people are knowledgeable media figures. They're not just like random people who are oblivious. They went so far. If you were to listen to the interview, you would recognize that they went so far back that they found like old debates that I had with Destiny at the time. This has become a snark sub. This is what I was saying about Ethan's hypocrisy. Ethan understandably hates snark subs. I have talked about how snark subs are unhealthy and they're bad for the people that, they're bad for the people that entertain the snark subs, and they're certainly bad for the people in the crosshairs, like the content creators in the snark subs. Everybody understands this. Ethan certainly understands this, except he operates a snark subreddit and also a snark podcast at this point. Like, look at this. Any number of different people within the crosshairs. What is this? POV Hassan takes you hostage? What the fuck? What is this? 800 upvotes. Bro really added loner box in the thumbnail after he criticized the video. Hassan talks about Polish people with such disdain. It's bizarre. Noah Samson is pro-genocide. Like, random memes about me. Like, this is insane. How do you not realize this is a snark sub now? You have officially changed your fucking you have changed your entire community's outlook, So which is it? Is Ethan crashing out and becoming right-wing Zionist, or is he literally among the top left-leaning online shows like your own story says? That's so funny. No, he is. He's crashing out and becoming a right-wing Zionist and bringing all of you along with it. Like, where are the H3 posts, man? Made my Hassan-loving best friend watch a new H3 with me last night, and she locked in. I guess my question is, if you think personally that snark subreddits and snark podcasts are unhealthy, why the fuck are you operating one against your former podcast co-host? Like, you're bitching about your own fans that disagreed with you and left your community because you banned them because they correctly interpreted all of your arguments that were sneakily and sometimes not so sneakily pro-Israel in the aftermath of October 7. And that bricked your brain so hard that you wanted to fucking sue every random Redditor that has ever criticized you, sue every content creator that's ever happened to fucking criticize you at a time when, like, the American government is actively bouldering towards fascism. Anti-Semitism is at an all-time fucking high, and your crosshairs are locked into people who are personally getting upset at you for operating what previously was a relatively sizable progressive space online and turning that into a faucet of hatred for anyone that has ever said, Ethan, maybe you should stop spending all of your time shitting on pro-Palestinian voices if you truly are pro-Palestine. That is what this entire situation is. This is what the podcast has become. This is what the subreddit has become. I'm hearing more and more unhinged shit from Ethan on a daily fucking basis on my Twitter timeline, where he apparently is calling Jewish Voice for Peace tokens. Every Jewish person that's an anti-Zionist is a token now. Like, this is some real Michael Rappaport shit. It's alarming, to say the least. Yeah, he wants to sue Noah Samson for making an entire video where he correctly points out how many supposedly centrist drama slop tubers or people who masquerade as progressives have done subtle and not so subtle pro-Israel propaganda by not covering the actions of Israel and hyper-focusing exclusively on people who do cover the actions of Israel in Gaza. Yeah, he's going after Matt Lieb. He's going after all these other people. And the people that he goes after, they receive a torrent of hatred, okay? When you go after someone like this, when you go after a content creator, small or large, when you go after them and you actively try to deplatform them, as he has successfully done so, like, their fucking replies are flooded with the most Islamophobic shit. And at first, I remember talking about this with Frogan, right? When I was like, there's no way those are Ethan's fans. There's no way those are Ethan fans who are like saying unhinged Islamophobic shit. I think at this stage, they absolutely are. You have changed the dynamic of your community, and you have changed the overarching politics of your community, and those who remain, who are major fans of you, are also changing alongside the rest of the people that came in afterwards. It's so weird, and everyone can see how fucking weird it is. It's so strange. Like, everyone can see the transparent hypocrisy of constantly complaining about snarks, which there is validity to complain about, while simultaneously operating a fairly successful snark subreddit and a snark podcast. Anyway, let's continue with this.
Hassan's had his own awakenings and political evolutions too. Trans rights is an example.
It's not something that I hide. I used to have transphobic opinions. I mean, this was a decade plus ago, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's more so about like always being charitable and admitting when you're wrong, and maybe developing a better mindset around certain things with more information.
One of the biggest criticisms leveraged at Hassan is not that he's doing irresponsible journalism, sourcing stories as they happen during a stream from online users who are dropping links and rumors into a stew of a live chat log next to his video stream that moves so fast fellow kids lurkers like myself can barely comprehend it.
And not even that he is, as he says, also making propaganda, often pro-Palestine propaganda, which he admits fully up front. No. The biggest criticism of Hassan from the right is that he's extreme, which is also the criticism from other people on the left, or at least the center of the left, because Hassan is an avowed socialist. Not exactly the messaging a lot of powerful Democrats are going for. And that goes both ways. Hassan's support of the Democrats seems to be somewhere between tenuous and fully in the rearview mirror.
DNC was my turning point.
And I'd like to welcome you all to the Democratic National Convention roll call.
Why? What made you turn in that moment?
I was shocked at how not tapped into the real world I was when I was at the heart of where things are happening. I was genuinely shocked at how out of touch I was with everything else that was going on in the world. Because when you're there, when you're in that bubble, when the DC bubble comes to Chicago, right? You're still in that DC bubble. And I now understand why so many people, so many staffers, so many analysts, so many of these guys that, write these think pieces and whatnot are so unimaginably out of touch with the needs and opinions of regular old, American working class people.
And when you talk to regular working class people who listen to Hassan, like Megan, you do get the sense that he's having a real impact on their opinions and their feelings about the world, whatever their lived experience.
For Megan, that lived experience includes a period of homelessness. After she failed at her second college attempt, feelings of shame kept her from going home.
Despite that home life being one that Megan describes as privileged and supportive. She's back on her feet now. She works as a court reporter, doing transcriptions of court recordings. And in her spare time, she volunteers helping expunge minor marijuana infractions from people's records. But
it's so much closer to all of us than we know. And Hassan does a really good job of helping people to remember that these people are just like them.
The person that you see on the street that has like leathery skin at this point from being under the sun, from sun damage, sun exposure for many, many years, who clearly is not mentally well, right? That is the last tier of homelessness.
Hassan has definitely helped me to feel like that's something that I can share with people, because previously it was like shameful. I was ashamed of that. now if I do share that with someone, I will follow it up with the tears of homelessness and, you know, try to leave people with like a little bit more empathy for people that they see panhandling or whatever.
Empathy and charity. Feisty as he may be on the screen, these are words you hear a lot from Hasan and his fans.
More charitable to those ideas.
You'll never hear that from my fucking naysayers, though. That's why whenever I say I really care about being charitable to every single person, understanding where they're coming from, you'll never, ever in a million years hear that from my haters who will laugh at that. They're like, I've never seen you be charitable. It's like, no, that's the whole point. Trying to be charitable to the best of your ability until the person on the other side of the screen shows you that they do not deserve said charity, that they're here to simply piss you off, to simply fuck your conversation up. That is precisely the reason why I am always charitable to content creators as well. Content creators with massive communities that I know I can speak to directly. When they turn the crosshairs directly on me and make their fucking entire output how bad I am and the way I see the world and my politics, all of a sudden, you're going to have a shit ton more haters. People that could have just as easily been in support, allies in this struggle. Those who can actively advocate for a better future will then turn all of their attention and priorities to fucking being like, no, this guy is bad. It comes across as though I'm being selfish here and I only care about myself or my own brand or whatever. But like, no, these people have liberals especially, or centrists and people who love drama online have turned me into an avatar for fucking left-wing values. Okay? The problem, this is precisely the reason why I have tried to be as charitable as possible to XUC, Asmongold, H3H3, even fucking Destiny initially. And I, regardless of how these people treat me in general, I still will demand you do the same. Okay? Especially for normies. You cannot help yourself, bro. Lol. I don't know what you mean by that, but when you're having a conversation with a normie, you cannot fucking fly off. You can't just like pop off on them. You can't get ridiculously angry at them. You have to always approach the subject matter from a point of empathy, from a point of understanding like what their background is, what their social conditioning looks like, what their material conditions look like. You have to be normal. If you treat everyone as though they are reactionary fascists across the board, you're not gonna be able to convince anyone, you know? Wasn't the other guy's complaint that you weren't reining in your audience while they accused him of wanting to kill babies? Yes. That is the most hyperbolic approach to that subject from a person who felt wronged at the time. That is like the pivotal reason as to why he's still been doing a year-long deplatforming campaign that has been completely and utterly unsuccessful. In terms of the actual impact of deplatforming, it's been unsuccessful. It has been, however, successful in like convincing his own audience of normies who are not super political into thinking that I'm a fucking, I'm a fucking terrorist or whatever. I'm like the arch villain of American progressives. Having said that, the people that were calling him a Zionist at the time, not baby killer, okay, but a fucking Zionist at the time, were saying that because of his output, because he just kept saying things that were pro-Israel from a liberal Zionist perspective. And of course, a community like this one, or any community that understands the propaganda dynamics, of course they thought that. Of course. And I kept trying to both privately and publicly explain to him, like, Ethan, the reason why people feel this way about you is because they don't know the full, depth of your opinion. Because at the time, I did truly think that he was pro-Palestine. And I kept telling him, like, you can't say that, like, a gay sex worker is going to be thrown off of a building under Hamas leadership for saying that they're pro-Palestine if you don't want people to think you're a Zionist. That is just a pure, insane Zionist propaganda talking point. That's what you hear from the likes of Ben Shapiro or a Jordan Peterson or a Trump, right? Of course, people are going to assume that you are that way. And to be fair to everyone that like clocked him early on, he certainly showcases his attitude a lot more openly now. He mocks your talk to Sam Cedar line now. Lamau, what a freak. Yeah, I know. Like, that was my last message I ever sent to him. The last message I ever sent to him, and, you know, he's the one who leaked this to say it was inappropriate because he claimed it was anti-Semitic. I went back and I looked at it recently to see what I had said, because he had texted me on September 29th, and I didn't respond to him because he saw like a clip of me saying, I have no problem with Hezbollah. And he was like, oh, I really find it like ridiculous that you love Hezbollah or something. Like, he said, your support for terror orgs has been upsetting to see, my friend. I see nothing wrong with Hezbollah. Really troubled me, to be honest. I don't expect you to say anything, to be honest, because it's how you feel, and I think it's good that you're being honest, but I wanted to at least voice my concern to you. You don't need to respond if you don't want to, obviously, but I'm not expecting. That's what he said, right? And I didn't respond to him because, you know why I didn't respond to him at the time? Because I didn't want to fucking talk to him about this issue at a time when I was covering the Israeli invasion of southern Lebanon. Like, that was his hyper focus on that. Okay. And after that, after all of before the context nuke, or before all of that, there was a point where I tried desperately, like my last ditch effort, my Hail Mary, where I said, and again, he is the one who has revealed this text message. So I don't have an issue like rereading it, you know, so that people understand. On Thursday, October 24th at 7:22 a.m., after the deplatforming efforts really escalated, before the context nuke, but you know, the deplatforming efforts had really escalated at that time. My last text message to Ethan, who we didn't reply to, was as follows. I don't know what happened over the last couple of months, but I'm trying this as a last resort. I don't think you see me as an honest person at all, but I really think you should talk to Sam Cedar privately. You clearly respect him a lot more than you respect me, and he has lived experience. This isn't about debates or drama or clips out of context. I have always admired and defended your open-mindedness and willingness to change your worldview, so I hope you will do this. In spite of everything that has happened, I hope you're doing fine. I hope your family is well and the crew is good. Also, not that it matters, but it was wild to see you using a clip titled Hasanabi from a unlisted link from a Destiny community account. October 24th, 2024, 7:22 a.m. He never replied to that. Instead, he went on his show, H3H3 podcast, and turned around and said I was anti-Semitic for suggesting that Ethan Klein talk to Sam Cedar, a person he respects, not simply because he's a Jew. That's what Ethan's words were. Oh, you want me to talk to another Jew? No, because he has lived experience that I certainly do not, and because he is, or at least was at the time, a person that he respected. It didn't have to be on camera. I said, just talk to him. And I had also talked to Sam Cedar as well privately about this issue a long time ago. And Sam said he was totally on board with talking to Ethan privately. Now, if you look back at the time, around October, when I texted him that, if you look at the way I was talking about Ethan, both publicly and now, as you've seen privately, versus how Ethan was talking about me publicly, you will see a dramatic difference. I tried to be as kind as I could and as understanding as I could until the very last moment. And all of that kindness, all of that charity, all of that grace was slapped away by a person who was so lost in the sauce that they just could not see the world in any way outside of the horse blinders that he had placed upon himself when it came to this issue. So no matter how much people try to rewrite history on all of the adjacent drama communities, you know the truth, okay? And it's not an accident that this exact same situation has played itself out a million times over with other content creators on silly ass drama too, even with like XQC and shit. It takes a lot for me to just say, all right, you are not, like, you are never going to be charitable. You are always going to throw me under the bus. You are always going to use me as a vehicle to draw ire and to gain clout off of. And not only that, but also actively undermine this project, actively undermine what I seek to do. What I do requires charitability from the uninitiated. If they are not charitable, if they immediately come in with the attitude that I'm like a bad person, a terrorist, a fake, phony, hypocritical socialist, with a metric ton of pre-existing resentment and animosity that people have towards socialism, towards leftist values, towards progressive values, like, it's virtually impossible for me to convince people. It's virtually impossible for them to see what I have to say with an open mind. This is precisely the reason why I talk quite a bit about how, like, the drama slop tubers and other content creators who are apolitical, how they've played a formative role in undermining not just myself, but just like leftist thought in these spaces. And of course, in that process, understandably, a alternative content creators with like alternative visions, right-wing content creators, are going to thrive in that environment. If all liberals care about is shitting on fucking content creators to the left of them and leftists in general, then yeah, right-wingers are going to blow the fuck up in the process. It's normal, especially at a time when right-wing commentary is also popular. It's always been popular online, but it's especially become more popular. That's it. That was simply my point. A more charitable perspective.
It was that charitability.
A lot of charitability.
To put a finer point on it, while Hassan lives in this disembodied world of Twitch and YouTube streams, interviewing people who know suspected domestic terrorists at home or abroad,
he does seem to push this common theme of get involved in your local community and just help get things you believe in done. Which, again, whatever your political stripes, is probably good advice if you are not a billionaire, but you want to make meaningful impact. More than a year after Tim Houthi Chalamet had his moment in the sun, driving a skiff next to that big merchant ship Galaxy Leader, and becoming a special guest in Hassan's Twitch stream, the online world has moved on.
But the world hasn't. According to the latest reports from news and information services, new and old, that large ship remains under Houthi control. Its final destination, a question mark.
And in a way, we're all there too, unsure of what the future holds. For journalists, propagandists, billionaires, streamers, our goldfish attention spans in hyperdrive.
I think they made this before the Houthis released the ship and the people in it.
Somewhere in the back of our minds, trying to hold on to North Stars of how we should act towards our fellow humans, listening and watching and wondering what to do. Whatever the case, the stream is up.
Overall, the interviews were around Christmas. Yeah. Overall, great video. And, this is what it's like when you talk to actual journalists, adults who have a firm, established worldview and actual knowledge over geopolitical events, even if they don't fully align with my worldview. Okay? That's the difference. As opposed to a person with a political perspective, but not necessarily a lot of fucking knowledge on any of these issues. That is the major difference. So if you are coming in here with hate and with the attitude that you're in here to like fuck stuff up, you're here to like show the world the dangerous nature of my commentary, and you're like, why are fucking adult journalists treating Hassan differently than my favorite drama slop tuber? It's because they're adults. It's because they're not only adults but also knowledgeable on this stuff, and not simply operating off of some very clear resentment that they feel towards an individual or a particular worldview that they want to disparage and tarnish, but aren't smart enough to, craft a coherent narrative. So they have to rely on, Redditors that have clipped shit out of context for over a year. That's the difference. And I think a lot of people basically, see this, and they have two options, right? When they see stuff like this, they have two options. They're like, either everyone who is mature and grown up and knowledgeable on this issue are wrong or somehow blinded by Hassan's demeanor, or maybe the communities that I find myself in have a false assessment about the issue. Like maybe we were wrong. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I misunderstood. Now, for a lot of people, I think taking a deep breath, taking a step back, and admitting that like perhaps you didn't understand the issue in its entirety, and maybe you were duped, is gonna be difficult. That's gonna be very difficult. So I think that's the reason why I see a lot of people going in the exact opposite direction, where they go, no, it's stupid, sexy Hassan. He controls the media, and increasingly find themselves in the throes of like QAnon style conspiracies as they double down, triple down, quadruple down, and assume that there is like a mass media initiative, you know? Or the third thing, which is, finding something out of this reaction that they can clip out of context and continue the Hassan fucking sucks narratives. No matter what happens, though, I still believe that people have the capacity to change and make up their own minds. I don't know. I kind of agree with the narrative that you suck. Yeah, it's true. I do suck. I'm just not going to stop. I'm a very stubborn person, so obviously I'm not going to stop advocating the things I'm advocating for, regardless of all this shit that's happening, all this background noise that's happening. And a big part of that is obviously because I've been able to create this massive community of like-minded individuals who do care about empathy, who do care about changing people's minds, who do actually go out of their way to protest, to join local organizations, to join community organizations, to join unions. And, that is what makes it all worth it at the end of the day. Anyway, what is this? What? Lol, you suck. Asmin is for you and you can't stand it because he's so much better and bigger than you. Radical hypocrite fool. Me. Greets from Austria. What the fuck? I will never understand this take, especially when it comes to Asmongold, because Asmongold has always been bigger than me. There has never been a moment where I have been bigger than Asmongold. Asmongold has always been bigger than me. I've never had issues with Asmongold until he became a right-wing content creator. I don't have issues with Asmongold being a bigger content creator than me. I have issues with Asmongold fostering a community of right-wingers and doing a metric ton of right-wing commentary. My issue with Asmongold is the same as like a Ben Shapiro type, or maybe a Tim Pool type, right? Tim Pool might be a better analog, considering that he also considers himself a centrist, claims to be a centrist, and yet constantly finds himself on the right of all these issues. When you talk about extreme size, the only thing they can think of is, oh, you must be jealous. I know. They will never hear what I'm saying. They just like refuse to hear it. I see it so much. Can we watch Jimmy the Giant's video that kind of talks about this? Sure. Let me see. Which one? Did I escape the alt-right just to be brainwashed? This is the one you're talking about, right? He put me in the title too. I mean, he put me in the thumb.
You go down to the pool that I have jumped out of the alt-right pipe, right? This video is brought to you by Lies of the Left. When are you dropping How I Escaped the Alt-Left Pipeline? Woke crap. Since I made that video, Escaping the Alt-Right Pipeline, there has been a claim that's kicking around that I have jumped out of the alt-right pipeline and landed slap bang in the far left.
Can you clear for the haters? Are you demonized or do you choose not to run ads? I choose not to run ads, but I am also demonized.
Left pipeline. In this video, I want to talk about that. I want to talk as well about what the direction of this channel is, how you guys can help. Yes, that means I'm setting up a Patreon and I'm going to ask you for money. But not just that, right? We're going to talk about the culture wars, the evolution of wokeism, and most importantly, am I now woke?
Yes, my favorite small YouTuber who only posts obscure content finally uploaded again. Is this submarine sort of woke now? Don't tell me that isn't a woke-shaped submarine. Trying new stuff, I guess. Sorry, I didn't know the Walt Disney Company is making submarines now because it looks less people.
I figured I'd start this video out with me doing my political compass. I did it on stream, and when the results came in, shit. God, I'm a fucking lefty.
That's mental. That's insane. I can't believe it, bruv.
Yeah, I guess I am pretty left.
For those of you who don't know, Jimmy the Giant used to be, by his own admission, he's someone I interviewed as well, by his own admission, someone who was like firmly in the alt-right. And he is at his own personal journey where he's become a little bit of a lefty. Also by his own admission.
Wing now, look, I'm gonna make my excuses. The problem I found with these tests when you do them is that it sort of doesn't account for new.
I think it's impressive that you focus on problematic content creators and drop them once it more or less gets resolved. More or less resolved. I mean, it fucking rarely ever gets resolved, unfortunately, but yes.
Once, because me as an individual, I can be very critical of unregulated capitalism. However, I really like capitalism. I really like businesses. I like it in many industries. I like when people come up with innovative businesses and they create cool shit. I think without checks and balances, capitalism has some nasty tendencies. Competition in capitalism can drive innovation, but I believe in order to actually have real competition, you have to have things built in to stop the 1% of wealthiest people hoarding all of the wealth.
Everyone calm down, okay? Let him talk. Like, you don't have to immediately go, this man is an ideological enemy. Like, just chill out. This is what I mean about charitability, okay? This is literally what I mean about being charitable to people. You're talking about a dude who was like a couple years ago saying like, we got to save England from the scourge of unrestricted migration. And then the moment where he's like, I've gotten out of all that stuff. And I still think that like capitalism is good. I like cool shit that they invent. He's not a card carrying commie. Like, you know, I guess he's an enemy, you know? He doesn't, not a card-carrying commie who wants a permanent first world genocide. This is crazy.
I believe a state should control its utilities. Like private billionaires maybe shouldn't own our water supply, our rail, our electricity, etc. But you see, these political compass tests, they don't let you type out your answer. It's basically, is capitalism exploitative? Yes or no? So you just have to take my word for it that practically and politically, I am a social democrat. I believe in the sort of Bernie Sanders, the Nordic model. But the graph says I'm far left, so fuck it. I'll own it. I'm far left. But you see, this does leave two very important questions. Firstly, why am I not a communist? And secondly, and much more importantly, am I woke?
Almond milk. All I want's proper bloody milk, not left-wing options, proper milk. What's wrong with me asking for that?
To answer...
It's a war on proper milk, lads. It's a war on dairy. Save England. It is pretty funny because, like, this is why I do Hogwatch, right? Because there is so much unlimited potential. It's an untapped vein of content. Right-wingers are constantly hilarious, organically, without even trying. That's why I think it's good to, like, sometimes laugh at them when they come out and do dumb shit like this, okay? It's just... It is a very successful mechanism of propaganda, the way that like right-wingers do this to some of the edge cases on the left.
These questions, I'm going to tell you a very long and drawn out story to extend the retention time on this video.
Done. Now let's see how it looks so far.
All right, imagine this. You made it to summer, you managed to not top yourself during the British winter, and you go on holiday to Croatia.
Beautiful.
Look at it. Oh my God, what's that thing in the sky? Where's the rain? Where's the grey? Why is it not all grey? It's your first day and you think, you know what, fuck it. We're not going to do the bags. We're going to leave them in the hotel room and let's just go to the pool. And you're feeling good, right? You walk down, you're British. So obviously, you've already got a beer in your hand at 10 a.m. And as you walk down to the swimming pool and you look for a sun lounger, you peer over your sunglasses and you notice there's fucking towels everywhere. You know what? I'm not going to get mad. Fair enough. It's a busy day. I'm a bit late. My fault. Should have got there earlier. So tomorrow I'll wake up early and I'll try again. Tomorrow comes. You wake up early. 8 a.m. and you go down to the pool and you notice there's fucking towels on every sun lounger, Barry. Why are there towels everywhere? And what's worse is that about 40% of the sun loungers are empty. No one's sitting on them. Compared to the amount of people in the swimming pool, there are enough sun loungers to go around for everyone. However, because people keep putting their towels to reserve them, there's none available. So what do? Tomorrow, you set your alarm clock for 7 a.m. the moment that the pool opens and you arm yourself with all the towels you can get. You sprint down to the pool, you beat everyone. Ha ha! I did it! And in that moment of triumph, you realise, shit, I went from a nice, community-loving proletariat into this individualist, hyper-competitive petty bourgeoisie.
You've changed, man.
This right here is what happens in a society with no regulations. The greedy, self-interested individual can literally dictate an entire culture upon people who would actually not mind sharing.
We're all watching it because we're all horrified that we've had to do this every day on holiday, Lella. This has ruined my holiday.
That 1% of people, and you all know him, everyone knows that greedy guy in the group, they don't really care that everyone else has enough. All they care about is making sure that them and their family have what they need when they want it, whenever they want it.
Do you mind not looking at me like that all the time? It's really disturbing.
This small minority of people, their behaviour makes a ripple effect, which causes people to respond in defense, mirroring their competitive behavior that otherwise they probably don't want to mirror. But they do so due to fear of scarcity. I mean, just think about it in your life. Like during COVID, this happened with the toilet paper, right? Everyone was scared that they'd have none for when they needed a dump. And despite the news repeatedly telling us we have no shortage of toilet paper, the shelves are empty because people were panic buying.
As soon as you see some people buying more than they need to, you start thinking, will there be enough for me?
And when you're in the shops yourself, you can see that people are panicking, so you're starting to panic as well. It's more of a follow the crowd sort of thing.
In a plea to customers, they said, "We need your help. There is enough for everyone if we all work together."
And look, this is all very tragic, right? Our beautiful, lovely Croatian resort. The poor people that just want a nice holiday. They all convene, right? All the pool goers, they convene and they discuss, how do we fix this problem? And they come to a genius conclusion of maybe we should employ a few staff members to monitor all of the sun loungers and make sure that people aren't reserving them with their towels. And we make sure that we have enough sun loungers to go around. Yeah, well done lads, you did it. You had your big revolution, Pooltopia's established, brilliant. But you know, look, some time passes and like new generations are born into this Pooltopia. And as we're sat enjoying a cocktail late into the evenings, old granddad, the proletariat, he's telling stories to his young petty bourgeoisie grandchildren. Listen here, Michael, back when I was your age, right? You won't bloody believe it, mate, but we used to have to wake up 7 a.m. to come down here and put towels to get a sun lounger. It was a nightmare. I'm telling you, it was a nightmare. Ruined the holiday. All right, Grandad, go to sleep. And one day, Grandad does go to sleep. And he doesn't wake up again. And slowly, we forget.
Look at them. Look at them.
The younger petty bourgeoisie, they never had to fight for their sun lounger. They grew up in good times, and they started to have their own ideas of how this Pooltopian economy should operate. My friends of Pooltopia, I have a question. Why do we have these tyrannical pool chair Stasi policing and monitoring our every towel placement? Do they think we're children? This very persuasive speaker rallies the Pooltopian economy into firing the chair guards. And so what they do in turn of the guards is instead place nice shiny signposts on the walls saying, no putting towels on sun loungers. And the signs look great, right? They're brilliant and everyone's following them. But at the end of the day, they are just signs. One day, as they rush down to the pool to jump on a sun lounger, they notice that there's some towels already on the sun lounger. That's weird. It's probably nothing to worry about, probably just some keen beans going for a morning swim. And then they wake up the next day and they notice more towels are on the sun loungers. And the next day, and the next day. And just like that, the cycle resets. The towel wars return. And somewhere far away, Grandad Proletariat is rolling over on his heavenly sun lounger and thinking, I tried to warn him. Before we go any further, I want to give a massive shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Squarespace is undoubtedly the best platform for making your own beautiful, perfect website. With their new design intelligence, which combines the newest AI technology, and their many years of understanding how to craft unique website templates, you can now literally just type prompts into the AI and it will make an entirely bespoke website template for you and your brand. And also what's so helpful if you're selling products online is their payment systems. They accept so many different types of payments from Klarna, ACH direct debit, Apple Pay, and you can even do buy now, pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. And also, if you don't love writing like product descriptions or whatever, you can use their AI to generate descriptions for you. Also, if you're not that great at copywriting and putting like product descriptions in, Squarespace's Blueprint AI means you can bang in a prompt to ask it to make a description and it'll shoot out some really good copy and you can just tweak it to how you like it. So be sure to head over to squarespace.com/Jimmy the Giant, and to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain, use the code Jimmy the Giant. Anyway, back to the video. Thank you guys. Don't worry, you don't need to give me a round of applause. I know, it was a masterful analogy. This concept and this thought of like how power struggles in politics eternally have battles was encapsulated perfectly by the aristocratic socialist MP, Tony Benn.
I'm old now, and the older I get, the more I realise every single generation has to fight the same battles again and again and again. There's no final victory and there's no final defeat.
This right here is where I personally separate from, say, communists and real far left people. They will point to like the 1900s, right? Where people are working in these brutal factories for pennies, living in slums. And then from incredible hard fought battles politically, by the 1950s, these same types of people were given free social housing, free healthcare, free education. And it was great. It led to 30 years of the longest continued economic growth we've ever.
Yeah. The issue here, of course, is that all of those gains were hard fought, right? By communists, by socialists and trade unionists, like a coalition of people that had a range of ideology. And they were bloody battles, both here in the United States and also in the entirety of the Western world. The issue, however, is that while it took a while to claw back all of those social safety nets, ultimately capitalism won. Ultimately, capital owners won. They had their wishes. They were able to get their wishes because there is an extent to social democracy. There is an extent to how much. There is a limit to how many gains you can make, and social democrats will oftentimes reflect on the social democrats right now reflect on the social safety nets that were fought for by people that were infinitely more radical than they are, not recognizing that the advocacy for capitalism that they maintain, the posture that they have towards capitalism, is ironically the reason why those safety nets that they want to bring back now are getting taken away from them. This is why a lot of hardline Marxists will understandably say that the welfare state structure is simply a lifeline for capitalism, a band-aid solution. And it is true. There is truth to this.
We've ever had. We drastically reduced inequality. There was very few economic collapses. However, this incredible progress was completely reversed.
Socialists don't like people to do things for themselves. Socialists like to get.
It's also the stupidest arguments. Like, I can't stand it. I'm no elitist by any means. I myself will voluntarily recognize how stupid I am, how many limitations I have. But god damn, the stupidity of anti-socialist thought truly frustrates me, because it reminds me that you don't have to be particularly brilliant. You don't have to be particularly smart. You can just basically say the dumbest things possible, and the overwhelming majority of Western society will agree with you when it comes to being anti-communist, anti-socialist, and the like. That's it. You can say anything you want about socialism and what it truly means, what it means in practice, or what it means in theory, and people will just go, yep, that seems right to me, because other people have also said that before me, and I'm just taking it for granted without ever actually thinking about things in a different way.
Get people dependent on the state.
Also, Margaret Thatcher isn't a particularly stupid person, okay? Margaret Thatcher is evil, albeit fairly intelligent. It's just even intelligent people can very easily dial back their intelligence and talk about socialism in the stupidest ways possible, and the majority of people will eat that up.
Never build a great society that way. We were the first country to attempt and to succeed in rolling back the frontiers of socialism, which is the first cousin to communism.
By the 70s, when Thatcher came in, the wealthy classes managed to undo a lot of this progress, stripping back welfare states, privatizing publicly owned assets. And the communists will argue that the reason this happened is because we didn't go full communist. And I agree with them. However, I personally don't believe that there is an eternal solution.
Western leftists often ignore the majority of the world population being brutally exploited in the global south. Social democracy requires this exploitation. Yes. Another thing that I ironically tried to have a normal, productive discussion with Ethan on the Leftovers podcast back when we had a podcast was that social democracy can only exist in the ways that it does with hyper exploitation of the global South, there's no other way to have a social democracy. And on the domestic front, there's obviously always going to be exploitation of the domestic working population and a consistent, concerted effort by organized, class-conscious billionaires, millionaires, and capital owners alike to claw back those beautiful, bountiful social democratic welfare state extensions that you have taken for granted. And as that goes away, you will become more radicalized. You will become more reactionary because there's a lot of economic instability that comes from that. And if there is no socialism or socialists in your country that are telling you, no, this is fucked up. These people are stealing from us. They're stealing all of the benefits that we fought long and hard for so that they can make a tidy profit by privatizing these previously state-owned enterprises. If there's none of that, and there's unfortunately none of that in Europe, because capitalism won, communism lost. Let's be real. That's what the Cold War did. All that remains is right-wing populist sentiment. You're angry and you should be angry. Why should you be angry? Because immigrants are coming in. Immigrants are stealing what remains of the coffers of the government. They're stealing from you. It's other poor people that are stealing. You are a hardworking white man and you work long and hard days only to get fucked over. And who's fucking you over? People on the dole. Who's fucking you over? Immigrants that are coming in and stealing your minuscule social safety nets.
Personally don't believe it. On some level, no matter how much you achieve, how much you raise living standards, how much you structure your democracy to be as representative and democratic as possible, ruthless actors will still find a way to give themselves more power and control. When the problems of the past are fixed, the younger generation forget the struggle that it took to get there. And you can see this on the other side, when you flip over to like right-wing libertarian attitudes to capitalism. Many of the American right sort of follow this idea, like Ben Shapiro. But then in Britain, we have like with the Reform Party, Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage, who often talk about removing the welfare state. They criticize disability benefits a lot. Some of them want to privatize the NHS. This ideology, this sort of libertarian ideology, completely forgets the reason why these things exist in the first place. Wait a second, why does it exist? Isn't it just one big waste of money?
Well, first of all, the number of people who will suffer is likely to be very, very small. Private charity, private efforts will provide support for the vast majority of people who would be poor in the absence of some kind of support. And when government does it, it creates an air of entitlement that leads to more and more demand for redistribution until everyone becomes a ward of the state.
Well, look, let's talk about that. So let's say we have some bloody libertarian revolution and we create the Free State of Britannica, sponsored by Meta. In this amazing libertarian utopia, we all go out and we make our own little businesses. I open a little shop selling gamer goo. You open a gallery displaying NFTs. And like, you know, we still have a government because we're not complete anarchists, but it's a very small government. There's no welfare programs, there's no free healthcare, there's none of this stuff. All there is a few politicians to stop monopolies forming, because even libertarians understand that monopolies are bad. What's this all going great?
Do they? They say in theory that monopolies are bad, but I mean, the reality of the matter is libertarianism or any kind of deregulation actively moves the needle in the direction of monopolies. As a matter of fact, the reason why monopolies currently exist in the United States of America and all around the planet is not because the government created them, but it's oftentimes because there is a tremendous amount of deregulation that allows companies to take advantage of the marketplace and engage in predatory practices, undercutting the competition, and then purchasing them once they go bankrupt. Amazon is a perfect example of this in the e-commerce field, where Amazon is a monopoly in the e-commerce field.
And we're all trading and doing our thing. A guy appears, right? His name is Shelon Crust. Shelon invents a brain chip that can cure your existential loneliness. Amazing! What a great innovation! What a genius! The market should reward him for his incredible contributions to humanity. And so, Shelon becomes incredibly wealthy.
But you're trying to do good things and you're a billionaire. I mean, yeah, that seems a little bit like either superhero or supervillain. You have to choose one.
And because he owns this chip, he's able to spread his ideas on his platform and push them to everyone. And he starts pushing some ideas of how society should function. Weird, different ideas with like strange hand signals and stuff.
Okay,
And what Shilon does, because he's so wealthy, he actually manages to find a very charismatic politician. And that politician is called Ronald Rump. And he becomes the president. And all of a sudden, Shilon starts bending the laws to suit him. The government, who are meant to be like, you know, not involved in the economy, they start imposing tariffs on Shilon's competitors. He even manages to make the politicians agree to taxing the people, and those taxes go to funding his big projects. And very quickly, Shilon just starts building this non-competitive monopoly. But wait a fucking second, hang on a second. In our libertarian economy, you're not meant to do that, it's against the rules. Shilon doesn't give a fuck about your lame little rule book, and he's made enough money and has enough power to do whatever he wants.
This is the chainsaw for...
What's worse, right, is because you made the government so small and so weak, you actually stripped away all of its powers to protect the people from Shilon's red pill rage. Very quickly, Shilon starts exploiting the working class. And bada bing, bada boom, well done, you recreated the 1900s.
I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in, you want to quit? They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike and you say, that's okay, you're all gone.
You see, this is the big problem, right, with libertarian theory, is that built into libertarian theory is this belief that cultural values alone and market competition are enough to guide morality.
I mean, it's liberalism that's base boosted. That's what it is, you know? Good, bad dynamics, like assuming that some people are intrinsically good, some people are intrinsically bad. Bad people do bad things for evil reasons. Good people do good things for good reasons. And also simultaneously that like some other idealistic spiritual reason will actually hold this entire process together. That's why I get frustrated whenever people say like communists are collectivist. They don't care about the individual, or they'll say things like the man's nature is inherently greedy. It's like, yeah, a materialist understanding of the world or a Marxist perspective is not inherently collectivist. It ultimately wants individuals to have personal freedoms, more personal freedoms that are currently allotted under this existing organization of the economy. Yeah, cultural values. Cultural values enough to control exploitation. Are you a baby? Yes, they are. They are a baby. And just like a baby, they think that even though currently, I don't know, they work at a fucking Jiffy Lube, that they're going to magically turn around in this like deregulated structure and become a god, become a demigod amongst men. It's like, oh man, once the government stops holding me back, dude, I'm going to be one of the rulers too. It's like, no, you won't. You will be a slave. You are currently a wage slave, and in the next evolution under a, I don't know, fascist, anarcho-capitalist dystopia, you will be a slave that inevitably gets sent to the glue factory. You're currently a wage slave and you can't even see that. Why the fuck do you think your situation is going to get better? You're currently advocating for your own demise as it stands. You're going to turn into a battery cell. They're going to melt you into biomatter. I'm telling you right now.
Would
it be different in a communist state? Yes. The entire purpose, the entire principle behind not just a communist state, but anti-capitalist thought and anti-capitalist action is quite literally to change the current existing hierarchy. It automatically is beneficial for the average working class individual. Okay? That's it. If you are truly someone who is self-interested and you are currently a wage laborer, you have one of two options. You either fantasize that one day you will be a ruler, you will be a part of the ruler class, you will be a capitalist, and, you know, then those working poors better look out because I'm going to be ruthless, right? You either fantasize about that every day, or you recognize your current standing in society, you recognize the class dynamic, and you choose to undermine it. You choose to work against it. You choose to, for your best interest, create systems where you can advocate for more, create systems where you can demand more from your bosses. For example, the profits, the surplus labor value that you contribute to the company, you can get more of that back. but it will never happen because you asked kindly enough. It will only happen if you get together and you say, hey, all of us, without us, you don't really have much. Okay? You don't really have much. You just have a factory. You have tools at your disposal. You have upfront capital, but value can only be created with all of us working on the assembly line. Without us, you have no value. That's just sitting there and it's depreciating. Those are depreciating assets. So we want more. We want more in return that you are taking from us. Currently, as it stands, we want more benefits. We want more of the profits, a larger share of the profits that we're generating for you. The only way to get that is through collective bargaining, and if push comes to shove, showing your worth to the company with collective action, work stoppages, a strike.
Individual people to not exploit each other, as opposed to having heavy rules and regulations. But I mean, just look through history. Look at every civilization ever. History shows us that powerful, rich business people exploit workers wherever they can, unless the state steps in to stop it.
You have security cameras right behind you at all times that are looking at you 24/7. And if you don't meet standards or the rates, you're out the door. You're just disposable.
Even Margaret Thatcher,
No way, man. A socialist state always changes one hierarchy of the plutocracy billionaires to the government bureaucrats. It's one hierarchy over another, and they both debase individually. Yeah. Do you have an alternative? What's your alternative? Are you an anarchist? Is that what your alternative is? Like, this notion is hilarious. We currently exist in the fucking plutocracy of billionaires. You're making it seem as though under a socialist state that the government bureaucrats become the billionaires. Okay. The greatest example of this not being true is even when a country attempts to engage in a transitional socialist state like China, while there are still a tremendous number of issues in China in terms of its governance, in terms of its domestic policies, there is obviously better even development. Okay. It just is the truth. A truth that many Americans refuse to recognize. Many people in the Western world refuse to recognize that reality. Now, is China perfect? Far from it. Of course not. But with the limited amount of resources that they've had over an incredibly short period of time, they've been able to become a competitive global superpower that is seemingly going to outcompete the United States of America in a matter of a couple of years, if it's not already outcompeting the United States of America. How did that happen? Individuality. They both debase individuality is a silly centrist attitude to have in this process. You're imagining that socialism will create a new hierarchy, but then give the awesome power that capitalist billionaires have to government bureaucrats. All of a sudden, government bureaucrats are living in this living with incredible amounts of power. And your lives will still be dominated no matter what. Sure, there's a moral justification of that hierarchy based on the general good that ultimately concentrates power and abuses it. Yeah, I'm willing and able to concentrate power and abuse it at your behest. What I mean by that is, no matter how much wealthy people have told you that it would be terrifying to have public housing, I'm going to give that to you, whether you like it or not, okay? You might complain all day, every day about, oh no, we can't have socialized medicine in this country. That's devastating. That's terrifying. Yeah, guess what, dude? You're going to have it and you're going to like it. Doesn't fucking matter to me. And I'll give you an example of how you actually do like it. Are you ready? People with my mindset and the mindset of many others in this community have fought long and hard for a lot of the amenities that you currently take for granted. You don't like child labor. Child labor is hyper exploitative. It's ridiculous. Well, thank a fucking union for that. Thank the communists for that, for fighting long and hard through literal labor militancy, through battles with blood, sweat, and tears. You like the weekend? Thank a union for that. Thank some communists for that. Okay. Do you enjoy the weekend? Do you enjoy, like, you have a sense of autonomy, a sense of purpose, a sense of humanity that you recover in that time frame? That is precisely because people older than you, okay, your great-great-great-great-grandparents fought long and fucking hard to get that, okay? It does not happen because people are kind and ask for it in a kind manner. It doesn't work that way. You like a 40-hour work week? Okay, thank a labor union for that. Thank communists for that. Thank socialists for that. There are already so many so many things that you personally enjoy, that you personally like, that you personally take for granted, that people have actually actively fought for. Those are good policies, but you can't disregard the reality of the risk of those hierarchies. We need social support and investment. We need universal health care and education, but that doesn't mean there won't be a debasement of individuals as cannon fodder for the ruling class. You exist in a world where you also, by your own admission, recognize that there's a ruling class that does not care about you, and then you fantasize about potentially another ruling class that will force more egalitarian policies upon you, but then you still fantasize about them dominating you somehow. I keep getting network errors on your stream only. What WTF? I don't know. I don't know why it's happening.
Icon of neoliberal philosophy. In her dying days, she regretted some of the forces that she unleashed through neoliberalism.
Some of the arrogant displays of wealth jarred very much with me and with the Prime Minister.
The capitalists have given Margaret Thatcher a bad name because she did not believe in excess. She believed in responsibility.
In a system with no rules, power will always win. And power doesn't care about your cute free market fantasy. It cares about control and domination.
The free market has never existed. It is a figment of the imagination of people. The market is a system that favors the rich, which is why the rich love markets.
So, like, with all that in mind, that's the very extreme libertarians and the very extreme communists. It leaves me in this weird place where I, in one part of my brain, understand and accept that we do have the logistical and technical ability to literally create a utopian world, to give everyone what they need. But unfortunately, I believe that despite that, human nature stops us from achieving it. Self-interested individuals will do what they can to break anything good that we have.
Yeah. Here's the difference, though. Self-interest is at the forefront of socialist thought, but absent of class consciousness, you will always advocate for your own demise when you talk about greed and self-interest as a way to maintain the capitalist organization of the economy as a working class individual. This is baked into our collective consciousness. Not only is human nature and self-interest not the end-all be-all, and I think that the entire history of humanity proves that we have always, like, there's no notion of like a natural state of being for humans. After all, what is natural about skyscrapers or airplanes or fucking astronauts going to the International Space Station? None of that is natural. The entire existence of human nature is to overcome the natural predispositions. This is why it's considered a logical fallacy to apply naturalism as a argument. Okay, everything we do is destroying nature. Now, having said that, I hate this take of yours. Wait, what? Why? You said spit, and then you said I hate this take of yours. But having said that, there is an argument you can make. There's a selfish argument you can make for socialism. There are more of us than there are of them. There are more people who are wage laborers than there are people who own capital. The problem is people who own capital do, under capitalism, run the countries, run the organization of the economy. They run everything. And the entire system under capitalism is designed to keep the existing structure the way it is. That's it. So if people were more selfish, wage laborers were more selfish, if they could have some class consciousness to recognize where they are in current society and advocated for their best interest, they unironically would be able to bring about a potential socialist change, a socialist revolution, if you will. The problem, of course, is that it is incredibly difficult to organize, especially when there is a lot of effort to divide the working class along numerous boundaries. The easiest ones, of course, are to instill panic amongst the white working class and black working class, instill panic amongst immigrant laborers versus domestic labor, you know? I don't know why there's a constant network error happening. I can't look into it, chatter. I don't know why. Yeah, here, this is my, girls love dictator Hassan Ark. Yeah.
I'm going to be authoritarian, okay? I'm going to be
This is, oh, I reposted this already, okay.
authoritarian right now. Let me tell you something. I am going to, in an authoritarian manner, I'm going to force free healthcare on you. I'm going to force free healthcare. That's sweet, sweet free healthcare on you. It doesn't matter if you don't like it. You're gonna be like, no, I want to die to curable, treatable diseases. I want to die. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not gonna have medical bankruptcy. I don't give a fuck if you like it or not, okay? You get to have no say in this process. I'm the dictator. And you know what I'm dictating? Free fucking healthcare for you, bitch. Don't give a fuck. You can complain about it all day, every day, but you're gonna get it. And you're gonna get a free college education as well. And an opportunity for a jobs program, okay? A federal jobs program where you can have great benefits on top of that. You can fucking say, I don't want it. No, I hate those things. I don't care. Yes, that's going to happen regardless. And you know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to punish the fucking wealthy. I'm going to punish the super wealthy, corrupt capitalists, okay? I'm going to punish them. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you sell spoiled baby formula knowing full well that it was spoiled? Guess what? You're going to jail, bitch. Oh, I'm sorry, Sackler family. Did you actually fucking create a massive opiates crisis? Well, guess what? We're not giving you a slap on the wrist, okay? You're going to prison. That is my dream, okay? Whether you like it or not, you're getting these things. You're getting these fucking benefits. You obviously haven't lived in a society with universal healthcare. I have. It sucks. I grew up in Turkey, a much poorer country than the United States of America. And let me tell you, okay, public health existing, like a national healthcare structure existing, even though there is also still private insurance in Turkey, is still wonderful. Were you an adult in Turkey who had to pay taxes and you're rich and your family is rich, so don't pretend you understand the impact of those taxes? Yeah, rich people famously love paying taxes. Yeah, it's actually a very common advocacy from rich people to advocate for higher taxes so you can pay for fucking social safety nets for the poor. Famously, that's what rich people always advocate for. I can't comprehend how you can ever say universal healthcare sucks. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, let's continue with this, but after that, we're gonna talk about potentially the Wartime Immigrant Act.
Benefit themselves, and that applies to even what I advocate for, the system of social democracy. Even if you achieve it, it will eventually become undone. I think you even see this starting to happen in some of the Scandinavian countries, where there's more privatization happening and stripping back of their welfare state. I just think you have to build a state that protects us from that as much as is possible.
There is no destination called justice or democracy, and if you catch a train driven by the right man, you'll get there. Every generation has to fight it.
All of that understanding brings us to now, 2025, where we're in like this very weird time politically. So whilst wages have stagnated for the last 15 years, houses now cost 10 times the average annual salary, all the while corporations are making record profits, whilst people can't afford heating, the middle class is shrinking, the poor are getting poorer. Despite all this, society seems to consider the most important problem of our time is which bathroom does a trans person take a shit in?
You don't agree with gender-neutral loos?
No, not at all. I think they're extremely dangerous.
And bro, I'm not judging. I was one of these culture warriors. I was deep in all this stuff. I was one of them. But how did that happen? Well, this is where things get a little bit interesting. And it all started in 2008.
But we are underway, and I do mean underway.
We're essentially down by 4-5%.
Down over 16%, 18%.
21%.
43%.
Traders here working the phone say a lot of their customers are freaked out, waiting to see how low the Dow will go. They're focused on the Dow, not so focused on OPEC. Yes, OPEC did.
After the financial crash, where big banks committed financial terrorism, gambling on people's homes and crashing the economy, this resulted in mass unemployment, rising inequality, and the destruction of working class people's savings. When I was growing up, they referred to this as the credit crunch. The biggest financial crash that has happened since the Great Depression, they had branded it like it was a breakfast bar.
Oh,
Cool, no doubt.
This crash led to the taxpayer bailing out the banks. In America, it was up to $700 billion. In the UK, it was £137 billion, with a £1 trillion safety net to protect the banks from collapsing. And so, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Lehman Brothers, the banks who tanked the global economy were saved by taxpayer money, whilst the working class saw the greatest cuts they'd seen in generations via austerity. And people noticed this pretty quickly. People were starting to wake up to the fact that unregulated capitalism as it currently existed is fucked. Public rage was brewing, and the ruling class was starting to get scared that real change might occur that would upset the current order in which they benefited from. And so in 2011, we start to see the people organizing, and we see Occupy Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street, all day, all week.
Suddenly, people aren't just pissed off and protesting, they're now naming names. The 1% becomes a mainstream concept.
1 in 7 children in the United States suffer from hunger. At the same time, we're giving billions and almost $1 trillion to Wall Street just for bailouts. We need an economy for the people and by the people, not by the rich and for the rich.
People are noticing that the politicians that they had to choose between were being funded by the same banks that just broke the economy. All the while, this left-wing populist movement was starting to grow, and they were demanding things like higher taxes, stronger labor rights, and universal healthcare. And so the ruling class realized that they needed a distraction.
Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. Tonight, the truth about social justice and distorting its meaning. No. We're going to correct its meaning.
We have like, God, right-wingers have used so many crackheads to just like actively belittle and dismantle any kind of like left-wing populism. And liberals have so gladly allowed that to happen. Liberals have also simultaneously been like, yeah, no, that's great. Like they've complained about Glenn Beck. They've complained about him, right? But they also totally allowed right-wingers, as they did consistently, and as they did with the Black Lives Matter movement as well, liberals in positions of power have always taken note from the right on how to undermine leftist movements. Historically, this is just how they've always operated. This is why there's the famous adage of, cut a liberal and a fascist bleeds, because they find themselves aligned with right-wingers and fascists time and time again when push comes to shove, when there's economic volatility, economic instability, and they are worried about capitalism becoming undone. Same shit happened with Bernie Sanders, where you saw liberals lose their minds at the prospect of a Bernie-style figure.
Mid-2010s, something weird started to happen to the left. Social justice movements started to explode. We'd see Me Too, Black Lives Matter, increasing LGBTQ activism. And this movement starts to grow, and you see it in things like university and corporate HR departments, where they would start to implement diversity and inclusion initiatives. And some of this was very well intended, and some of it was purely performative.
Remember summer 2020, when our social media was filled with those little black boxes? Now, this was irritating, as I could tell that these were people that had no intent on creating.
This is yet another instance I recall when Radlibs yelled at me because I was like, why are you posting a black box? It is stupid. Stop posting black boxes. You are actually not helping, but instead harming activists that are using the Black Lives Matter hashtag to get information across to as many people as possible. And people yelled at me because I made them feel bad, because they wanted to feel like they were helping. They wanted to feel like they were doing performative help, slacktivism. How many times does this have to happen for people to finally come to that conclusion? The worst part about it is that it's not like when people realize that they might have been in the wrong, that they go back and go, hey, the guy who told me I was in the wrong initially that I yelled at, he might have been in the right. I've learned from my mistakes. I'm going to be a little bit more open-minded to what he's saying. Nope. They just carry on that resentment. They carry that resentment permanently, and they just move on. Yeah, similar thing happened with the AI Gaza pic. Is that Will's hat? No, we have the same hat, chatter. It's funny though. No.
Justice or true change, but they only wanted to appease their conscience.
From here, the liberal media starts to jump on board. You start seeing men's razor blades telling you that young boys having a little wrestle is toxic masculinity.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
Ice cream tubs were talking to you about racism. Nike run Black Lives Matter adverts whilst also simultaneously paying children to work in sweatshops. An era of what would be dubbed corporate woke washing started to gain a lot of momentum and kind of defang the economic left-wing movement of Occupy Wall Street. After George Floyd was murdered, big corporations would come out making these statements about racism, donating to charities, etc. But, you know, they were very quiet in perhaps supporting any economic policies like higher minimum wage, stronger unions, enhancing social welfare programs, things that might help the living conditions of people like George Floyd. Instead, these big businesses started to focus on pushing identity politics as the main leftist discourse. And to like average people, you could see it. You could see there was a hypocrisy. If you're not going to improve the living conditions that create many of these social problems, then it kind of came across as empty and hollow, performative, so to speak. And so it created a reactionary right-wing movement.
I mean, you have talked about this woke mind virus. Yes. You should explain why you don't think it's hyperbole to say things like it's pushing civilization towards suicide.
2016 onwards, YouTube explodes with SJW cringe compilations. And whilst it seemed quite organic, various think tanks funded by billionaires were actually funding these anti-woke content creators, politicians, and policies. Things like the American Principles Project, the Clement Institute, the Heritage Foundation, the Stanford Review, Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News, The Sun, The Times, New York Post. All of these people would weaponize wokeness as the biggest existential threat to society.
David, am I overstating the fact that we're beginning to see the end of woke, the militarization of the Me Too movement and cancel culture?
The oil billionaires Dan and Faris Wilks, they would pump big money into...
Great video, dude. I mean, he is so dialed in. I've talked about all this stuff extensively, but goddamn, Jimmy the Giant really cooked on this one.
To things like PragerU and Daily Wire, who would push people like Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Jordan Peterson, etc. Eventually manifesting itself in Peter Thiel, the tech billionaire, being the financial backing force of J.D. Vance, who would of course become vice president.
Some religions view the body as a temple, and some religions almost invite the pollution. I think the woke thing is inviting the pollution.
And so with all this financial muscle, the anti-woke industry became big business. The media becomes fully addicted to this culture war. YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter rewarded outrage content. And suddenly every fucking influencer was making videos about woke college kids.
Imagine being a parent and seeing your child in a video like this, looking deranged, screaming at a speaker.
Leading to this once united working class movement being divided into two camps. Right-wing people believing that wokeism is the root of all problems, and left-wing voters convinced that fascism was the root of all problems, rather than the economics that created this condition. And all the while we were fucking fighting each other, the actual elite were just laughing their fucking asses off because no one was talking about them anymore. You can see this concept of like wealthy billionaire class deliberately trying to push the blame onto something else depicted perfectly in this post from Elon Musk, where
he's not undermining the threat of fascism. He's saying that, and I don't agree with this assessment, I will say, because he's saying that like the left was like simply focusing on, you know, people being reactionary, people being racist, people being this or that. And instead of trying to bring like a unified message to the working class to hyper focus on economic issues, it is a little bit reductive because I think it removes the importance of fascism from this equation, because fascism is the inevitable outcome of capitalism. When capitalism fails and there's too much instability, fascism is a way to reassert the hierarchies to through dominance, through state power, through state violence, is a way to restructure and reorganize society and try to maintain that exact same hierarchy, the hierarchy of capitalism. So I think when people are yelling about fascists or fascism, they might be yelling specifically because they're upset at a racist person or a fascist person that's right in front of them. But I think combating fascism is still incredibly important, even from the economic agenda front.
He tries to shift the blame for society's economic problems onto certain billionaires, but obviously not him.
I'm saying what I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. And what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil. Fuck them.
The culture wars successfully derailed the populist left movement. Corbyn was crushed by the media, Bernie Sanders was crushed by his own party, and the mainstream left of the Democrats and in Britain, the Labour Party, became these hollow parties with no actual backbone. And it just felt like the leaders were just puppets put in front of us, making the conditions for some kind of outsider to win support because, well, at least he's different to what we've got now.
The forgotten men and women of America will be forgotten no longer. That is the heart of this new movement. Hillary called them deplorable. They're not deplorable.
But you see, it gets even deeper than all that. So after that 2008 financial crash, right, where everything went wrong, capitalism basically failed, the US Federal Reserve dropped interest rates.
Grifting piece of shit. Get off your ass and make a difference, you lying fuck. You're just as bad. Seek help in 2020. Dog, I don't think you're a happy guy. Contrary to what your username is, if you've been a hater since 2020 and you like briefly come in every 2 years, every 3 years, I feel like you're a little miserable, no? But yeah, give me some advice. What would you have me do? Do you want me to lead the vanguard in a proletarian revolution, a violent proletarian revolution? Is that what you're saying? If I was a grifter, I would whisper sweet nothings into your ear about how woke is ruining America. And you would love it. I would tell you that the only way to be honest online is by being reactionaries, by being bigoted, because everyone, yourself included, have these bigoted opinions, and the wokes are too afraid to admit it. That's what I would do. And I'd make a shit ton of money doing so too. Why does nobody grift to the left?
To 0%. For the next decade, mega corporations, investment banks, and asset managers like BlackRock and Vanguard had access to virtually unlimited capital at 0% interest. Free money, basically, which they use to expand their control over the economy. Companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Tesla were able to expand their businesses aggressively whilst they didn't have to make profits. Amazon, for example, weren't profitable for years. It just kept borrowing at a near zero cost, undercutting all of their competition until it just monopolized online retail. And many of these tech startups that dominate the world now did exactly the same thing.
Not one wealthy company on the planet Earth that is cash free, that does not use debt. I don't want to get out of debt. I want to create wealth. And the way to create wealth is through debt.
BlackRock and Vanguard started buying up entire neighborhoods of houses, outbidding regular people who needed homes. They turned houses into financial assets. As they dumped more money into it and the supply didn't keep up with the demand, it drove house prices to the moon, like we can see now, to the point that now young people are never going to be able to afford a house.
It's the largest investor on planet Earth with over $9 trillion in assets. That's a pile of cash equal to about 1/10 of a year's global economic activity.
BlackRock and Vanguard combined manage over $17 trillion of assets, an amount that is larger than the entire GDP of China.
No one deserves to have that much money. Right? I mean, that's not like, I think if you do something that's good,
So not only were these bankers not punished for destroying the entire economy, it was the opposite. They were rewarded. They were given free money to buy everything up. Meanwhile, for regular people, our wages stagnated, house prices soared, and the cost of living kept rising. So yeah, that's pretty heavy, right? It's all very, very interesting. But I want to answer the final question, the most important question. Am I woke? Short answer, no. I wouldn't say so. I don't think so. Probably if you meet me in person, I'm not going to lead every conversation with my pronouns. I have close friends from different cultures and we'll probably take the piss out of each other's culture. Probably. If I see a lady on an airplane and she's trying to pick up her bag, I might offer to help her. Truly a bigot. But jokes aside, that doesn't mean that I don't think transphobia, homophobia, misogyny, racism, all the isms and schisms, that I don't think that they are incredibly important topics. They are. Women still earn less than men for the same jobs. And when they try and ask for more money, they tend to get penalized for doing so, whilst men tend to get rewarded for that same behavior. 77% of young people who are LGBTQ+, who when asked for what was the cause of their homelessness, cited that family rejection, abuse, and being asked to leave the family home was the reason. And like in my country, we had anti-immigrant riots that swept all over our country based on racist lies. And the fucking guy who nearly led the Tory party and is still in their party refers to immigrants as importing alien cultures. Like he says it like it's a fucking normal thing to say. These are incredibly real and very important topics that unfortunately due to the culture war have been commodified into like entertainment where we seem to be going backwards on these things.
What was the woke conversation that we were having? And I'm just going to throw it out there because there were so many about going back and forth, the right versus the left, when we just snuck in Roe v. Wade. Like, what's being snuck in right now?
And so all this leaves me with a question, like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Me. And like, look, I am just a guy. I'm just a guy. I'm not educated, but I do like want to try and help. I want to do my best to help. I've been blessed with this incredible platform, an incredible audience of you guys. And I also have the luxury of time and energy to focus in on trying to help. So my goal right now is to try and play my part in shifting the public discourse onto wealth inequality. The reality is right now, the middle class is shrinking. The poor are getting poorer. Wealth inequality is absolutely fucking all of us over.
The growing gap between rich and poor Americans is one of the biggest challenges facing the country. Get this, the richest 1% controls more wealth now than at any time in more than a half century.
Why it gets me pissed is because it's literally stealing my generation's hope for a good future, a fulfilling life, the ability to buy a house, to have a family. This meritocracy we live in just is mental. You have to work so unbelievably hard to get the bare minimum.
I work, my wife also works, but what we make as income is probably not enough. It's minimum wage, so it doesn't cover the bills, the rent, and every other thing we need to pay for.
Look, I'm gonna be fucking honest, right? I have 500,000 subscribers. I make good money. I do well. I went down the whole route of like grind set, self-improvement, dog eat dog, all of this stuff. I did all that. And I succeeded, right? I made something. It worked for me, right? But all I realistically got for it at the age of 30 is a mortgage on like an average size flat and an okay car. Don't get me wrong. I am truly blessed with what I have and I'm very happy. But what I have materially is what the average family would have had many years ago, earned on one wage whilst having 3 kids, working as a milkman. But
oh yeah,
I'm not a pessimist. I truly believe we can fix this.
That is
the more
true.
people we switch on to this message, the more.
That's a really good point. That is a really good fucking point. Like this dude he's made it, right? 500,000 subs on YouTube. He's made it. He's famous. He has a house. He has a car. These are things that are like right now in this day and age, this is considered making it, right? And it's fucking nuts because what he's talking about are just like amenities that you're supposed to have with one singular job, with a single working parent household. It's wild that people can't comprehend that like we've lost sight of the American dream, right? Like the idea that you can just work a job, get good benefits, have kids, raise them, have a decent amount of time off, that like, think about it, dude. I got fucking canceled for buying a house, like for having a mortgage on a house for myself and my family as a socialism, by the way, as though I bought a fucking apartment complex and became a landlord. Like that's the way people treated it. How fucking insane is that? It's reflective of how far removed we are from like normal living conditions. Okay, dude, it's a huge fucking house in Hollywood or wherever the fuck it is. It is kind of different, at least on the vibe check. Bro, what are you saying? First of all, it's a single family home in West Hollywood. And if you think it's a fucking mega mansion because of its price, You would be deluded. It's a normal size house. It's probably smaller than your parents' house in Connecticut, dumb fuck. Also, it doesn't matter. I didn't design the market. That's number one. Number two, it literally fucking doesn't matter. Like, think about it. Please, for a brief moment, take a deep breath and go, Hassan, having a house or renting out an apartment, does this change his commentary even a little bit? Does this change his worldview even a little bit? Who has explained to you that this is inherently hypocritical? Who? Was it me? Did I say that it's inherently immoral to own a house? No, I never said that. As a matter of fact, I want you to be able to own your own home as well. This is the problem. You treat this as though I'm some fucking televangelist who has a private jet and is like, yeah, I have to fly in a private jet. I can't be with undesirable sinners in a tin can. Like, it's so stupid. There's no like even normal exploitation in the way I fucking generate revenue too. You know how I generate revenue? You have subscribed to me. Times that fucking 45,000, 50,000. That's it. And you don't even have to. That's the craziest part about it. People are voluntarily saying, hey, I like your commentary. I want to give you $5 a month. I want to give you $6 a month. And initially it was because they wanted to avoid the ads. I don't even fucking run ads anymore. And people still subscribe. And people still gift subscriptions to the fucking chat. It's not like I'm giving you something extra even behind a paywall. I'm not. It's just perfect, completely voluntary. Getting mad at that is so psychotic. It's not like I'm fucking operating a sweatshop. And then people will go, well, Amazon is a hyper exploitative company. It's like, okay, where is the non-hyper exploitative company that I could be working at? That I could have a contracted gig, like a contracted wage structure with, where I could still reach the same amount of audience. It's funny because these attitudes actually come from people who, one, haven't put much thought into it and just basically go off the smell test. The notion that like someone else is supposed to have a say on like what kind of fucking house I took out a mortgage on is so stupid. Anyway.
More that we can fight wealth inequality. So here is my plan. Currently, I am in talks with a publisher about potentially writing a book. We'll see where it goes, but the idea is to distill all of these ideas, these important bits of education that people need to understand into a...
Also, the other side of that, that I think is really funny is when people go, you're advocating for these things, but you're rich, you fucking hypocrite. And it's like, what do you want me to do? You want me to change my entire worldview now that my finances are different? Like, is that what you want? This doesn't make any sense. Why would you want me to no longer be on your side? It's so stupid. It's such a stupid argument. It makes no sense, dude. They're like, no, please conform to the rest of the wealthy class and start advocating to own me like the fucking peasant that I am is a ridiculous position. Yeah. But this actually is a great example of what I wanted to talk about. The peasant-mindedness of the reactionary right. And what I'm going to show you is actually a beloved comedian who goes by the name of William Burr. As you guys know, William Burr, Old Billy Bitch Tits, is one of my favorite comedians. And what's interesting about it is that Bill Burr, in spite of his success in the field of comedy and in Hollywood, and in spite of all the bounties of said success in this field, he's actually become increasingly more radical in his commentary as years have gone by. Instead of becoming more out of touch, he has, I would say, become more in touch with the needs and the anger and the resentment of the average working class individual. Bill Burr says a metric ton of, dare I say, radical, maybe even violent things about billionaires and people who own corporations, the mega wealthy, on a daily basis. Okay? You're literally the counterexample to all those people telling me you'll get more conservative and greedy once you get a big paycheck. Yeah, I know. That's why people's brains are bricked, because of the juxtaposition. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about Bill Burr right now. But if I were to talk about myself, that juxtaposition is what pisses people off. Oh, Hassan is rich, but he's advocating for socialism. That must mean he's hypocritical. That must mean he's lying. Oh, Hassan looks a certain way, acts a certain way, behaves a certain way that's like very bro-y, okay? In the way that like many of these people fancy themselves as, you know, someone with a rigid work structure that works out, that cares about physical fitness, personal health, things of that nature, has a good family life, has good friends. All of this stuff is supposed to be conservative. Conservatives can only have this. How can you say this and then be progressive? How can you say this and be socially progressive? How can you say this and be socialist? This doesn't fit the propaganda. Like when you look at someone on a lineup, Sargon of Akkad versus someone like myself, okay? Or when you look at a lineup with someone like Ben Shapiro versus someone like myself, in terms of like what conservative values are all about, or someone like Asmongold versus someone like myself, that's an even better example. In terms of the way that conservatives fancy themselves and have presented themselves, most people would say, I'm the conservative one. Guy who works out, very bro-y, says pussy, bitch, you know, sometimes is very toxic. Guy who has a rigid work structure, who's constantly talking about personal development, versus guy who has not showered in a month. Who the fuck do you think conservatives think is the conservative one in the way that they envision what conservatism looks like and what conservative alpha males look like? Yeah, it's going to be someone like myself. We saw the exact same breakdown because of the ways in which conservatives hyper-focus on optics with the Sam Cedar versus gay Republican debate, where everybody was like that man bun wearing gay Jubilee kid clearly is the libtard here, and Sam Cedar, the clean-cut elderly gentleman speaking sense, must be the conservative. That's how it is.
Hey, everybody.
Whoa, Big Joel did a Death of YouTube Skepticism about 5 years ago. I love this. This is like one of my favorite genres of commentary, is like the history of the history of atheist YouTube, skeptic YouTube becoming like incredibly right-wing. Yeah, we're going to talk about the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States by Trendaragua. Don't worry, we'll get to that in a second. But going back to this, conservatives are now up Bill Burr's ass. Why are they up Bill Burr's ass? Because he doesn't say cancel culture wrong, cancel culture all the time. Because he, unlike the overwhelming majority of that era of comics, the older comics that all fucking exclusively talk about like gay and trans libtard campus activists, Bill doesn't really entertain it that much, right? He doesn't entertain that shit at all, and instead attacks the wealthy. And because conservatives are unimaginably fucking peasant-brained, they hate him now. They hate him so much. They keep saying he has a DEI wife because his wife is black. You know what DEI is. And the only thing he's done is basically say, billionaires fucking suck. Billionaires suck. They're the reason why everything is wrong and everything is broken in society. It's true. It's an objective truth that Bill is recognizing and in a humorous way explaining. Okay? And for that crime, for that microaggression, right-wingers are relentlessly attacking him. It's crazy. It is fucking crazy. Aren't the Houthis terrorists? Yeah, I mean, if you believe the Trump administration, because the Biden administration certainly didn't seem to think so until they decided that these guys were actually doing something to stop Israel from doing a genocide by implementing a blockade on the Red Sea. Anyway, getting back to Billy Bitchtiz. The reason why they hate him is because he's talking shit about billionaires. That's it. So if you're not a billionaire and you're just like a regular old Loby right-wing account trying to make ends meet on Twitter.com, now known as X.com, why in the ever-loving fuck would you have any resentment or any anger for Bilbo Baggins here? Are you a billionaire? No. Why are you saying, get behind me, billionaire, I will defend you? I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. Until you realize that these guys have peasant brain. Here,
I mean, and it's not like he hasn't been anti-billionaire. He's been making fun of incredibly wealthy, incredibly famous people for being dumbasses for quite a while. This is a video from 2012 originally. 2012.
Actually, Nerd Jesus died in the last year, right? Steve Jobs. Yeah, he died, right? I know. A lot of nerds here tonight. I know, you're sad. I didn't get it. I didn't get the big deal they made about that guy. When he died, they were like, he changed the world. That's insane. He changed the world. The world was one way, and then Steve Jobs came, and it was another. What did he do? Somebody, for the love of God, what the fuck did that guy do? What did he do? He told other people what to invent? I want my entire music collection in that phone. Get on it, right? And then these poor, nameless, faceless scientists got to go in a back room and figure it out. What the fuck?
Dog, this is from 2012, okay? 2012. Understand, 13 years ago, he was saying this. Nothing has changed.
Are we going to get all of this into this? I mean, what year does this guy think this is? This is crazy. This is like Buck Rogers. Dude, my kid has a birthday in like 11 months. Steve Jobs just walking by. I don't hear any thinking going on in there. Strutting around the office, eating some pretentious fruit like a pear, right? Just throwing out ideas. Another one I just came up with on the way to work. I was reading a magazine the other day, turning pages, you know? I like to turn pages on a screen that aren't even there. Yeah, wrap your fucking heads around that, guy. See you in 8 years. Where you going, Michael? Big, little, get on it, right? And all these people slave away to make his vision come true. And then they have the big nerd fest, right? Down there, Comic-Con, and all their nerd mecca. They're all showing up with their Acne and their Hulk shirts, limping into the arena, right? Does Steve Jobs go out with a whole chorus line of scientists? No, he goes out there by himself, sneakers and no belt, like it was no biggie, right? Like he's Tesla, tapping into the atmosphere. I know, this is always uncomfortable. I know, you bought into it, right? That whole advertising, the way they aligned themselves with some of the greatest people of all time. Jesus, Gandhi, me. Remember that?
He means Nikola Tesla, not Elon.
Muhammad Ali, John Lennon, this guy. How the fuck was that dude like any of them? Gandhi didn't have a sweatshop. He didn't have people leaping to their deaths only to catch a net and get ricocheted back through the window to have to put together yet another iPad. John Lennon didn't have children in his basement pressing those fucking albums. I know. New phone can't fit the old charger. This is your hero? This is the guy? This is what all the silence is about? New phone can't fit the old charger, so then you gotta throw it out, ends up in the ocean around some octopus's neck. Do you realize how much sea life is ecstatic that man is no longer walking the earth? That's where it all ends up, you know. Doesn't go in a landfill, ends up in the ocean. You realize that? I hate people who say I don't pollute. I don't pollute. Yeah, you do. You use shit and you throw it out. Well, you think because you put it in like a basket, it just poof, disappears? Everything you ever used is somewhere. But think about that. Remember that flannel shirt you bought back in the day when you got into Pearl Jam? That's out there somewhere. Probably on some porpoise's face. He's trying to get it off. Stupid little flippers. All the fads. You remember rollerblading? Remember that? Everybody had them. We set up cones. We did little tricks, right? One little homophobic joke killed that entire fad. What's the hardest thing about rollerblading? Telling your parents you're gay. Full-grown adults. Dude, I'm not gay. I don't have the cooties. These mean I suck dick. And they just threw them out. They end up in the ocean. They're made out of plastic. They can't biodegrade. They just break down to little cubes. Fish are breathing them in. 6 months later, you're going out, you're getting sushi. You think you're being healthy. You're eating your old rollerblades. All right, I'm on a...
Okay. I think this perfectly demonstrates to many who've been watching me but don't understand my admiration and endless loyalty and love for Bill Burr, considering the time when he was, when he was crafting this shit. And you can tell he's not as good as he is now, too. He's not as comfortable on stage back then, even though he was already like a seasoned comic at 2012. Now, I think one of the best ways to see if someone is a timeless comic
is to look back at their old material and see if it stands the test of time. And the only way that your bits will stand the test of time are if they are inherently leftist. This guy literally on accident, because we weren't fucking woke about microplastics back then, but this guy on accident invented the thing that we now know as the meta, which is like eating the microplastics. He wasn't that well read to know that the microplastics issue was a major problem. He was just looking at the situation from a leftist framework. If you want to come across as predictive, if you want to literally have all of your friends turn around and be like, how do you fucking figure this stuff out? It doesn't make sense. Why do you come across like you got the gift of prophecy here? What's happening? Be a leftist. A little bit of common sense, a little bit of critical thinking, and also materialist thought will go such a long way. Okay? It'll help you with pattern recognition. But of course, the inverse of that is the one time if you are if you come across an issue, especially as it pertains to the propaganda that you hear from the State Department, and how you're not immediately on board with that, let's say, and you get one detail wrong, even though your analysis is correct, people will never let you live it down. But yeah, there's a reason why there is a reason why people always go back to like the old Simpsons and go, dude, why is the old Simpsons predicting this? Why is the old Simpsons predicting that? Why is this old Simpsons is crazy? It's because back then they had a leftist position. It's not as informed now, and they've definitely shifted their attitude. But if you want to understand good comedy, timeless comedy, look to people's old work, see if it stands the test of time.
Bill Burr is having a rant. This is towards who? This is towards Elon Musk? Is this the one that you...
Musk, I don't know if he's on a podcast, but I don't know what the hell.
Is this the one?
Oh, they're so mad at Bill. Oh, they're so mad at Bilbo. Neurotic Toast says, do we know if Bill Burr has changed his trans takes? He was pretty anti-trans women in sports. He has even a bit about Special from 2015. I know he can't be perfect, but it'd be nice for him to grow in that area. I don't know. And I don't remember his takes on trans women in sports or anything like that. But you know, there's always going to be some shit. It's not appropriate. I'm not saying that it's like allowed or whatever. But there's gonna be imperfect allies in general. But a guy that has like empathy baked into their commentary, a guy who has like a very well-established worldview that revolves around helping others, probably could be easily convinced not to be transphobic. Also, I'm looking at your comments, and you talked about that whole issue with the Asman calling you schizo when the subject of destiny comes up. He's acting like you haven't dealt with 7-year harassment campaigns, which you were silent on until recently. Asman admitting to using the subreddit and knowing it brigades, by the way. Yeah, Asmongold knows that the Destiny community actively hunts me. He knows it so well because he has DM'd me about it in the past. He's just acting brand new on camera now. He's acting like he didn't know about it. He has personally talked to me about this before. He has also, I think, admitted in the past about the insane ways in which the Destiny community fucking tries to brigade everything that I appear on. So it's really weird that he's changed his stance on the matter now. I'm fairly certain he's like even publicly talked about it in the past. After all, it's Asmongold who once said, if Hassan is so wrong in the ways that you guys say he is, then why do you constantly have to lie? Why do you constantly have to lie about his positions if they're so bad? He recently shared he is on the Reddit himself. Yeah, I think he doesn't want... Here, I'll tell you what I think is going on. Okay, I haven't talked to him about this personally, so I don't know. But I think he knows how fucking annoying the Diddy Gers are, how rabid they are. They're not like the biggest community, but they are basically cyber terrorists, right? They can actively brigade communities. They can like do a lot of bad PR and slander propaganda. And they openly do it. They do it in a fairly sophisticated way. I mean, there's a fucking entire Bloomberg article dedicated to the defamation, slander, and the deplatforming campaign that they engaged in. Asmongold knows all of that, because most streamers know all of that, right? Like most streamers are familiar with other streamers that are making a living off of creating drama and like actively harassing other content creators. Streamers talk to one another. And that's part of the reason why no one ever talks about Destiny, is because they're truly afraid, understandably so, that they don't want to get the smoke from Destiny's insane fan base, who actively harasses journalists and actively harasses anyone and everyone, even when they can't get to me, people in my group of friends. And Asmund knows this, and I think he just doesn't want the smoke from him, despite the fact that if Destiny was even a little bit honest about his liberalism, he would spend probably 700 times more time focusing on the largest content creator, who is a right-winger, Asmongold, rather than someone like myself. But the reason why Destiny doesn't do that is because he likes that Asmongold is attacking me all the time. So he every now and then will push back on some of his takes, but overall will stand back and stand by. It's an interesting allegiance built around coming after someone like myself, rather than actively undermining a very large right-wing community. That's it. Like, think about how many videos someone like Sex Pestiny has done on a person like myself, who is supposedly very close to me in our worldview, right? He's a liberal, I'm a leftist. We should agree on more than we disagree on, right? Now, compare that to the largest right-wing content creator and how much he talks about the largest content creator in the same vein, in the same, with the same exact angles of attack. And you realize that it's almost quiet, you know? If 20% of your output is directly on someone who you have ideological closeness to, and it reaches nowhere near that standard when you're talking about a dude who is much larger than me, then maybe you don't have any sort of real political dog in this fight, and you just simply are carrying out a personal vendetta against the person that you are upset with, and you're using politics as a weapon to wield in the process to actively recruit larger people, actively recruit a larger audience, to make it seem like this is a political battle that you're fighting, to normalize, common sense liberalism. Me too. I hate this bullshit drain. It's not up to Hassan anymore. He's getting it from more than 7 people at this point. Yeah, it's there are a lot of people online who I think spend a good deal of time claiming that they're liberal or centrist and apolitical, that focus all of their efforts on being like, this is a bad guy, watch this guy. They never have that same critical lens for others, interestingly enough. And it's just weird. I don't know. Even when they have very clear ideological differences in opinion with others, they sometimes align. Sooner or later, though, those people often show their cards, show their worldview. Anyway, what is Bill Burr built? Bill Burr torched over Elon Musk Nazi comparison. Let's take a look.
Damn, this guy's good.